Welcome everyone to the latest edition and a special WrestleMania after show edition of the Wrestling Authority podcast. I'm your host, Jim, and joining me today, my co-host as always, Ricky. What's up, Ricky?
What up, man? Are the fans ready for WrestleMania's episode?
Oh man, this is going to be the biggest episode of the year, no question. We have so much to talk about. We got to do a WrestleMania review, and then we're going to touch up on Raw that followed it. So much to get going. Last week, obviously, we had our predictions, and just out of the gate, not going to say I told you so, but if people read my article about 2 weeks ago on PW Mania called It's a Seth Rollins kind of WrestleMania, they would have known what's going to happen.
Oh, man. Are we allowed to talk about what happened yet, or should we wait for a little bit later on in the show?
You know what? Yeah, we'll touch upon that later on because we have a lot to touch on that. Let's start off with the show in general. Just overall, quick first impressions of WrestleMania for you.
Overall, man, I loved it. It was a lot better than I originally expected. I knew for WrestleMania, everyone was gonna go out with a bang. Everyone steps it up, but literally everyone was on their A game that night, and even when I went online to see what some fans thought about review wise, I saw a lot more positive feedback, especially because when the fans don't like it, you see it on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
right away. Twitter, Facebook, and stuff, and I loved it. I think it was one of their best pay-per-views in a while, in my opinion.
I agree. I thought that WrestleMania, surprisingly, the card wasn't as stacked or as as some years where there's so many like dream matchups. You obviously had your Sting and Triple H, and you had the big confrontation Roman and Lesnar, but it wasn't the best stack card from top to bottom. But boy, I'll tell you what, this to me was a top 3 WrestleMania all time.
100% agree.
Top 3 all time. I can't find many WrestleManias that were that satisfactory, had that many surprises, had that many twists and turns, but most importantly, had so many quality wrestling matches. The wrestling quality was so good on this show. Literally, almost the beginning, like first 3 matches, I thought any of them could have stole the show. We talked about who's going to steal the show, and we have contenders. We have a few matches that stole the show.
Yes, I totally agree. For me, my top WrestleMania is WrestleMania 17 for me.
Oh yeah, that's a great one. That huge turn with Austin and Rock. Yeah, I think that's the most classic moment.
And this one, I agree, top 3 all time for as well.
Yeah, you know what? I definitely think that the most memorable moment to me, I think, is one of them is definitely the Austin turn because no one saw Austin ever turning heel, and that was such a huge turn, and it was a game changer. Completely, the WCW invasion started. It was a completely different time in the WWE. So that was monumental to me. I thought my favorite WrestleMania from top to bottom, I loved WrestleMania 21 when they went to LA. I thought that was the beginning of the new era with Cena winning and Batista winning, but I just thought that card had so many good matches. You had the Kurt Angle Shawn Michaels match, which was outstanding. You had such an exciting card. That was my favorite WrestleMania.
And you know what? Just a quick add-on. I feel like that Kurt Angle Shawn Michaels WrestleMania match doesn't get enough credit that it should.
It's forgotten, and I think a majority of it is because Kurt left the WWE and he hasn't been around for a long time, so people tend to forget about that match and don't talk about it. I was looking back. I usually do this little WrestleMania binge a week or two, usually like 2 weeks before WrestleMania. I start catching up on the old ones. And I mean, there's so many Kurt Angle matches that stood out. Him and Brock at 19 was just awesome.
That was a great match.
Even the triple threat at 22 with Ray and Orton was so good. I mean, Kurt Angle, we talk about Hall of Famers. That's a guy that he had a short span in WWE compared to what his length has been in TNA, but this guy is a shoe-in Hall of Famer, and I
Right.
certainly hope, Sting made his return to WWE and his debut technically, but I certainly hope one guy that comes back is Kurt Angle to finish his career in the WWE. He deserves that last WrestleMania moment, and he's just done so much good for the company. It kind of sucks that he's been almost forgotten in a sense.
I agree. And when we talked about in the first episode about him resigning with TNA, I was bummed because I would have loved to see him, like you said, his last run in wrestling with WWE. And I know he's signed until I think December.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping, really hoping to, at the Rumble, when we hear that countdown, you hear that the Olympic gold medalist is music, because the fans will go nuts.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know what? Next year they're ready to talk. We're gonna touch on a little bit of a preview for next year's Mania, but there's already talk how they're trying to sell out attendance records in Dallas, and they're gonna try to bring back all the legends, and
Mhm.
make it a huge show from top to bottom. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, let's start off with the review. I mean, you had two matches in the pre-show. The pre-show gave
Yeah.
us the tag team match, the tag team title match, the four-way, and of course the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial. I thought the tag team match was really good.
The tag team, it was a lot better. I love that one spot I believe it was Cesaro, Biggie, in the corner when they were on the top row when they did the suplex. Do you
Oh
know?
yeah,
Do
the
you remember?
double suplex, the double. I think it was the Matadores. Two of them were on top, and it was Big E and Cesar. I think it was a double suplex. So yeah, yeah, definitely the Los Matadores were there, and it might have been one of the Usos because one of them got injured, and
Yeah,
it was potentially maybe it was Kofi. I'm not sure. It was definitely like a major spot, and I thought it came out awesome.
yeah, definitely. And I mean, Cesaro and Kid, I actually like them as a tag team personally. I
Mm-hmm.
think them two together, they have a lot of talent,
Yeah,
and the tag team match was better than I expected.
for sure. And I thought they really gave it their all, and everyone really performed well, and it was exciting and fast paced.
Oh
And
yeah, I agree.
and I believe the right team won. I think you need to have Cesaro and Kid regain the tag team titles and kind of continue their run, because they just started, and I think that's a good team to build around the tag team division.
Oh, I agree, especially, and the thing is too. I feel like if they're on their own, I feel like they almost get lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So putting them together as a tag team, it works.
Yeah. It was a great start to WrestleMania. Then the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial.
Oh, I loved it.
It was really good, actually. It was exciting, entertaining. I think they accomplished what they set out to do, which is make Damien Sandow look strong and finally separate himself from the Miz, which they did a really good job of doing that.
That was
And
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool. And they totally, I mean, Damien Sandow came out as one of the biggest, even though he didn't win the trophy, which kind of is meaningless to begin with. But I think he came out looking the strongest in that, and really got a great pop from the crowd. I'm okay with Big Show winning. I mean, I think they kept on noting how he never won any battle
Yeah.
royal, which is kind of surprising. You would think a giant like that would win one. So I'm okay with him winning this one as opposed to an actual Royal Rumble. Let him win the battle royal. I think him and Andre, there's that tie in always, and. And
Sorry
yes,
about
and
that.
the dog does not like the Big Show winning the battle royal.
Not a fan of the Big Show, as you can
No,
hear.
apparently not. But it was a good showing, I thought, for Sandow. I was a bit surprised how quickly Ryback got eliminated. I thought he's going to last till the end at least. Um, and also, the big guys just like, and Mark Henry went out really quick.
Yeah, he went real early. Yeah. And well, wasn't Curtis Axel? He was the first one gone.
Hmm.
Axelmania ended pretty quickly.
I love that, though. It was such a nice little pop for him. You knew it was going to happen. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
but it was cool.
But yeah, I love the battle royal. I'm a huge fan of battle royals. I think they're always really entertaining.
Hmm.
Um, And when Sandow turned on the Miz, I loved it. Everyone, like you said, a huge pop. Everyone was glad for him, and I wanted him to win. I was like going nuts. I was like, "Come on, eliminate him! Eliminate him!" Big Show, he was on the top rope, teetering back and forth. Um, but I have no problem with Big Show winning it either. The way I see it is, he's kind of closer to the end of his career.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? The guy earned it. I feel like he's one of the guys that he doesn't mind putting the young talent over and working and helping out the young talent. So I was like, you know what? I think he deserves it.
Yeah, you know what? And it's not like a big deal. It's not like he won the Royal Rumble, but just a trophy. And you know what? And the main thing got accomplished, which was putting over Damien. And I
Yeah,
think he came over strong, and it didn't really matter who won in the end because he kind of held his own with Big Show and battled and got the respect from the crowd. So I thought
right.
they accomplished everything they set out to do. And I thought it was a quality battle royal, actually.
I agree. I agree. And too, like we were mentioning in the first episode, there wasn't really anyone that stuck out this year.
Hmm.
So it like why not give it a Big Show? Why not?
Right. Yeah. There's no one in there that you really. I mean, we kind of pegged Damien
Right.
Mizdow to be the one, but they accomplished a job by doing what they did with him. So I thought it was well booked.
Exactly.
I knew that they're going to start off then the show with the Intercontinental ladder
With
match.
the ladder match.
Yeah, it was just set up that way. And I thought it was a great start to warm up the crowd with that match. That was a really good ladder match.
Oh, it was great. Quick question though.
Hmm.
Quick question. Pat Patterson, the first Intercontinental Champion ever.
Right.
He's not from San Francisco, right?
You know what? No, he's not. He's from Montreal, Quebec.
Cause I think JBL tried to throw a gay joke at him.
Did he?
Cause obviously they were in San
Right.
Francisco with the 49ers,
Yeah.
and I remember JBL. It threw me off guard. JBL goes, "Oh, Pat Patterson. Fans love him, especially here in San Francisco."
Oh, I did not hear that.
And I
Wow.
was like, "Wait, is that a
Wow.
gay joke?"
That's a low blow. I'm surprised. That really went by. I didn't pay attention to that. I did not hear that, but that's JBL. Whoa. That was
Yeah,
unnecessary.
it was right in the very very beginning when they were in
Mm-hmm.
when they announced him,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Really, JBL?" I was like,
Uh
out of everyone, wow. But
yeah, that's not a good move, but I mean, obviously they didn't run with that because they're, unless you caught it like you did, that kind of flew by really quick.
I was
Um,
like, wow.
as far
But
as the match, I thought obviously I think you had the right winner in Daniel Bryan. The title is going to be so much better now off with him as champion, and it's going to elevate the title tremendously.
oh yes, oh
I
yes.
I love the him and Ziggler ending. I thought those were the two perfect guys to kind of go at it for that title, and they're both reaching for it. It was nice drama and good build up for them too. For a second, I actually thought Ziggler might have a chance to pull it off, but it wouldn't mean it as much as Daniel getting it. But I think everyone showed pretty well in the match. Obviously, I think the weaker ones were R-Truth didn't do much.
No, he was basically just once in a
Filler.
while. Yeah, he appeared to climb the ladder, and then they threw him off, and that's really all he did.
Yeah, I thought Barrett looked pretty good, especially with the bull hammers. He knocked
Oh,
out everyone at one point. I
yeah,
th-
that was awesome. He just pulled him off the ladder, and boom.
yeah, it took like a bunch of guys. I thought Dean Ambrose had that nice spot from the ladder that he jumped onto the everyone.
Oh,
That
that
was
was
really
awesome.
cool.
Dropping the elbow from the top.
But can you imagine I mean that he took a bump reminiscent of Edge at the from Jeff Hardy at WrestleMania 23 when that ladder broke.
Oh,
Uh,
when Luke Harper's power bomb.
Boy, that looked pretty vicious.
Yeah, when they showed the replay in slow motion, I was like, that hurt.
Yeah,
That
there's
hurt.
no way you can cover up from that one. That was legit.
Yeah, man, it was a great match from everyone though.
Yeah, I think everyone gave a really good effort. People took bumps.
Mhm.
Obviously, kind of our truth was just a filler scene, but everyone else, I think Luke Harper contributed. I thought Barrett looked strong. Ziggler
Mhm.
and Ambrose obviously did their job. They did really looked really well. I thought everyone had a good showing, and Daniel Bryan did his thing. It was a really good ladder match.
It was.
Definitely with a lot of bumps, a lot of good spots, and the right winner. I thought that one, the guys went out there to steal the show, and
Mhm.
to me they accomplished that.
Oh, I agree. You ended WrestleMania 30 with Daniel Bryan winning a championship, and you started WrestleMania 31 with Daniel Bryan winning a championship
Which
again.
was a great start. I thought that was well done and well booked.
Mhm.
Um, Boy, and the match that we predicted would steal the show would
Oh
Seth Rollins and Randy
man,
Orton.
they just went back and forth. They worked really well together in that match.
They really did. I thought that was so well executed and pacing was
Mhm.
outstanding. I mean, you would think these guys worked with each other for years. Like you would think
Mhm.
it's like these guys that they've been with each other hundreds of times. They were so aware of everything. It was just well choreographed. I thought they worked extremely well together. And
100% agree, man. And you know what? There was parts throughout the match that to me, I know there's a big comparison.
mhm.
Seth Rollins reminded me of Shawn Michaels of
Oh,
Mr. WrestleMania.
I will not disagree. I think we're gonna get kind of to the end of this discussion about Seth Rollins. He's reminding me of three different guys, and I'm curious to see what you're gonna think. Which one he's the closest to. But boy, Seth Rollins had a great showing that match, and Randy Orton, that RKO was the best RKO I've seen ever. For
I
more,
loved it. I had to show my sports journalism teacher the very next day in class. I was like, that was just beautiful.
it was epic. I
Mhm.
mean, I thought it was, and that's a tough move to pull off because the timing had to be perfect. It
Yeah.
literally had to be perfect. When he jumped, there was no room for error. That spot could have been missed easily
Yes.
by either guy. I thought Orton was like right on par, and that just shows you, I think, how good Orton is.
Hmm.
That in a ring, I mean, how underrated he is as a wrestler because he always hits the mark. He rarely misses spots,
I
and he
agree.
really comes through. I think he's one of the more underrated guys of our generation in ring. I mean, I think people respect his in ring ability. He's not Cena, obviously.
Right.
People know Orton's got moves, but I think he's one of the better wrestlers in the company, and I don't think he gets that much credit how good he is in a ring.
I totally agree. When Orton's on TV, you don't really hear good or bad about him. And then
Hmm.
when he's off TV for either injury, vacation, or filming, then you hear fans going, "Dang, I miss Randy Orton."
Right.
You
I
know?
think he's one of the more underappreciated stars because he's a
Hmm.
legitimate star of this era. I really do. I
Yes.
think I think Randy Orton is a little bit ahead of our time in a sense that when we're gonna look back in 5, 6, 7 years down the line, we're gonna look at the WrestleManias. We're gonna say, "Damn, Randy Orton was like one of the top guys ever in the company." I mean, he's on a top 10 short list already of all time. I
Yeah.
really believe that. And when we're going to look back in a few years when his career winds down, we're going to look back and say, wow, we really didn't appreciate how good this guy is. Because
I
think
agree.
about it. Randy Orton, am I getting this right? They mentioned it on the show. He's a 15-time world champion,
I
heavyweight
believe
champ.
so. And
That's
you
more
know,
than Triple H and Rock. That's five more titles than than The Rock, and two more than Triple H.
and you
Imagine
know what?
that.
He's tied with Cena, but they don't mention it.
They don't mention it, and it's like it caught me off guard. I'm like, wait, are they talking about 15 titles in total? Like, or no, that's not possible. It's 15 world championships, which is insane. You would have never thought that Orton was that far ahead,
I
statistically.
he it's just like you said. He's so underrated. He's put in so much work from his OVW days to when he first started and then got put in with Evolution to the Viper,
Yeah,
he's one of the all-time greats, at
he
least in
really
our
is.
generation. At
Definitely
least.
is, and he's been, I kind of think, overshadowed by Cena. He really has,
Hmm.
because Cena
I
gets
think he's the top before Seth Rollins. I think he was the top heel.
about he's been a top heel for years. It's just that, you know, for him, he clearly isn't comfortable working as a babyface.
Right.
He said it himself, but I mean, now I think he needed to be one in this feud, so the
Hmm.
timing's right for it. But we know Randy Orton's like a natural born heel. But
Yeah.
for me, I mean, and his WrestleMania record also speaks for itself. He's got a really good WrestleMania record, with a lot of victories over Cena, victories, um,
Over
over
Punk.
right. And I mean, and then you just kind of look at it like, whoa, Randy Orton's like compiled a bunch of wins at WrestleMania. It kind of been unnoticed,
Cena,
and
Punk, Rollins.
I mean, I did believe he had a recent loss and a couple WrestleManias ago to Kane. Uh, at
He,
28. And he had also, I mean, obviously the Undertaker loss at 21, but and in the triple threat match, where Mysterio won, but he's mostly had victories, and like they mentioned, that's his 12th straight WrestleMania, which is, I think,
wow.
the most impressive stat. 12 straight WrestleManias.
Wow.
So he's been there since WrestleMania 20, and he has not missed a WrestleMania.
Oh, that's right. WrestleMania 20 when he took on the Rock and Sock.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's impressive right
That
there.
is
Wow.
impressive. I think once again, Randy Orton under the radar, and we're gonna look back and say, "Damn, this guy was so good." And this match is just further proof about how good he really is. To
Mhm.
put that out there,
I agree. And this was Rollins' first singles WrestleMania, and man, did he make an impression.
he sure did. I mean, Rollins is just outstanding in a ring, and we can see it. Why there's no denying. Out of all the Shield guys, he's the most polished in ring for sure.
He's a super. He's gonna be a superstar,
Oh,
a
no question.
big name superstar, guarantee it.
I think this match did steal the show. It was just so good technically in the ring. I loved it. I thought it was great.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Next up on the card, we had Sting versus Triple H, and I thought it was a little bit of an early placement, for
Same.
this
I
match.
expected it a little bit later.
Yeah, I did too, and I thought it was a little bit too early of a placement. I thought they should have done Rusev Cena at this point, considering.
They should have swapped those two.
Yes, I think the swapping of that should have happened, and I just didn't. It was too early in the show, especially after coming off of that fight that Rollins and Orton had.
Yeah.
Um, I think you needed like a little bit of a breather, and we knew a slower paced match.
Yeah.
Um, would be Cena also in Rusev, but this one had a lot of hype for it. This was one of the most hyped up matches going into it. This Sting Triple H.
Yeah, his
Um,
WWE in-ring debut.
that's right. I thought they Sting looked good. I thought for a guy that hasn't wrestled in a while, he definitely held his own with Triple H.
Hmm.
Um, I thought it might be a little bit longer than it was. And it with a little bit more false counts, and near counts,
Yeah.
but more finishers to each other. I thought it was really good, borderline really good, but it could have been actually great.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. It could have been better.
it could have
It
been better,
wasn't
but it was
bad,
not a
but could have
bad
been.
match. It was not a
Right.
bad match at all. So definitely wasn't a disappointment or anything. Um,
To me, what stuck out the most, though, I think, was the whole DX coming out for
yeah,
Triple H, and then the NWO coming out for Sting.
that was a mark out moment for me. I thought it was outstanding that they did that. It was literally not only were we seeing Sting versus Triple H, something we've never seen before, and it was a fantasy match, but then you saw the two factions, the two most dominant factions of the last of ever, really all
Yeah.
time, come together. Obviously at an older age, but just the look of it, NWO versus DX clashing,
Mhm.
it was magical, and that's what really stood out. That's a WrestleMania moment for sure.
100%. Hell yeah, that was great because everyone's always wanted to see the DX NWO feud. Um,
Hmm.
Obviously, we won't see it, but that was as close as we got to it, and it was awesome. It was DX versus NWO,
A
WWE
brawl.
versus WCW.
Yeah, and it was funny too, because you had some of the Click members on opposite sides. You know, Nash going against Trips and Hall going against Triple H, and then X Pac on the DX side. He could have easily been on the NWO side too,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was just cool to see that. I really liked how they played that out. Were you surprised that Triple H won cleanly over Sting? I mean, I thought that was the big surprise of the night in a sense that people really thought that Sting's going to go over clean. And I thought we mentioned a possibility of Triple H actually winning that last week.
Right. Yeah. I I was surprised. Yes, because I was like, you know what? They'll put Sting over in his debut match, and then if he does end up going against Taker at next year's WrestleMania, I expect him to put over Taker.
Mm-hmm.
And then Triple H when I was like, oh dang,
Yeah, it was kind
like
of surprising. I mean, obviously it was a cheap win too with a sledgehammer,
yeah,
which
classic Triple H.
classic Triple H. Um, but yeah, I'm surprised they went that way. I mean, obviously there's reasons why Triple H could have won because he has been on a WrestleMania losing streak. But I
Right.
thought, and especially now going forward afterwards, this potentially could have been Sting's last match and only match, WrestleMania that is. And
Well, that's the rumor going around that
yeah,
he's
that surprising rumor actually too that it might be it for him.
right. Yeah, he was. I get to him. I feel like because he's done so much in his
Oh
career,
yeah, for sure.
so I feel like he's the type of guy that he's like, you know what? I'll have my WrestleMania. Screw it. If you want me to put you over, I'll do it. Whatever. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter.
Yeah, I don't see him
Um.
as being a guy that would fight for being put over or not. You know,
Right.
yeah, it surprised me a little bit. I thought Trips would go out of his way and actually be like, you know what, let's put over Sting. You know, um,
I
even
agree.
though,
A lot of us expected that.
yeah, I think that's what everyone kind of expects. So that was surprising. That was a clean win. Um, and it actually, I mean, I don't know how a disqualification would have been if one of the factions interfered. I don't know if the fans would have liked that more or actually hated on that more. But it was definitely surprising. And did you like the peacemaking at the end? What did you think about that? Obviously, that blows off the feud and closes that chapter. But did you like the way they handled that with a handshake and kind of shown of respect?
Right. Yeah. I was okay with it. I mean, the last few WrestleMania matches for Triple H, like when him, Shawn Michaels, and Taker they carried each other
Yeah,
off. Um,
Triple H's making a lot of friends at WrestleMania.
yeah, yeah. So I'm just like, whatever. I'm like, at the end of the day, um, no matter what happens, that was everyone would be excited because Sting finally got in the WWE ring at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think that's what the big thing to come away
Yeah.
from is. I did find it a little bit odd how forgiving Sting is. He just got hit by a sledgehammer to the head, and he just shaking Triple H's hand. And Triple H's the audacity to shake his hand after he just knocked him out with a sledgehammer to cheaply win it. You know.
How cool
Um,
would have been if Sting would have attacked him instead of shaking his hand?
That would have been interesting, but then you know what? I don't think you would have to continue to feud in some way. You know,
Yeah,
they
that's
had
true.
to. This was a definitely the only reason they did that was to close off this feud. You
That's
know,
true.
so they can move forward and not continue because this honestly could have been a feud that went continued at least till like Extreme Rules or something,
Yeah,
or even it kept on going, or you could have incorporated DX versus NWO if you wanted to. You had potential opportunities with this, what had happened with this match, where you could have dragged this out for sure.
yeah.
But I think they came in with clear plans to just make it a one off, and no continuation. And it was the right thing to do in that sense to kind of make the peace so the fans don't want more then.
And that's the thing too. Like, what I think about it is, with the rumors of Sting saying, if this is my only match or whatever,
Hmm.
is that like almost like, thank you for coming to WWE, thank you for giving me one match, and that's it, and that's the last of Sting or what? Because
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions now, and legitimate questions where you wonder, is that his only match in the WWE? Is that his only WrestleMania match? And is he gonna have like a SummerSlam maybe match? Or is that it? Or
right,
is there another Mania potentially next year? And this is a way of them kind of covering up and, announcing it later on, kind of surprising us.
right. Because I remember when he first signed, I would read rumors online saying that um, he might only wrestle like WrestleMania, SummerSlam, make a few appearances, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But then in his interview, he makes it seem like he's done after WrestleMania. And I don't know if you saw the interview, Sting's
The
interview with
WWE
Lesnar. Yeah.
exclusive? No, I did not actually. I know that's one thing they definitely pitched. And on a side note, if I was USA, I'd be really pissed off that that's such a big segment. It
Oh,
goes to
I
the
agree.
network instead of them who pay for um for the rights to have Raw and have big things happen. They're just like
It would have
pawning
been
off to
great
the
for
network.
ratings. And can I bring it up now, or should I wait for the Raw
We will
review?
touch on it more at a Raw
Okay.
thing. But yeah, no, I think the Sting thing will be something, a topic of discussion still, no matter what. I don't think it's the last that we saw of him in any sense.
I like to think we will see him at least two more times.
I'd like to think so too.
I like.
Then we had, was it the Divas match? I believe it was the
I
Divas.
believe yes, that was.
Yes. And you know what? The Divas match was all right. It was pretty solid, actually. I thought they had some nice spots and moments in it. I think everyone came ready to put on a show, and I think they fared well.
I
Um,
yeah. I mean, I love Paige and AJ. I think
hmm
they're two of the top divas in the division. As well as like Natalia and you can go with Naomi. There's a bunch. I mean, not including NXT, obviously.
right.
Um, but I think this was their moment where,
And they got some time too. They got
yeah,
legit 10 minutes in that match, for sure.
right. And and lately they've been doing that whole because they got news about the hashtag Give Divas a Chance or whatever.
Yeah,
And I think they took advantage of the WrestleMania match
yeah,
to
and I
show
think they gave
why.
them a little bit more time for that too because of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was I think the only thing they could have maybe done, and they've done it in the past in a sense, is maybe introduce one of those NXT divas as a run-in or a debut in some way, to
Right.
kind of further the year with a new diva. I think they've been mentioning Charlotte for like the longest time to debut, Ric Flair's daughter, and
Yeah.
she still hasn't debuted. And I think this is the time potentially with maybe AJ leaving. I don't know what it means really. I don't necessarily see her sticking around full time, especially with CM Punk not being in a company.
Right.
Um, so I thought it was a good situation where you could have like had a run in or interference by one of the newer NXT divas, Sasha Banks or Charlotte or one of those girls that's they're that ready. Literally, they are ready for the spotlight. They've been there
They
for a
are.
while, so I thought that was a potentially a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The way I see it, though, in the long run, future wise, we're um we're gonna get so much awesome diva matches because the talent of the women in NXT,
It's really good.
amazing,
Yeah.
just amazing. But like you said, Charlotte, Sasha Banks, Bailey,
hmm
um, you know the the listen NXT is an amazing development system.
For sure. And I think there's a lot of potential, especially when it comes to the Divas division. That's one division that's stacked, and that's something they're going to need. And I think they're in a good place with that. But yeah, overall, solid showing by the
Yeah,
Divas.
yeah. I would
Next,
have put the title on the line, like you were
oh
mentioning, like
yeah, I thought that was the big mistake. That was a flaw entering Mania, is not doing that. So they already missed on that, but that was in the fault of at WrestleMania. They did the best they could, but I thought that was a big mistake going into Mania.
yeah. It would have been cool to see Nikki turn on Bray or Bray turn on Nikki, but
I think we had that too recently, and I think
oh yeah, that's right.
yeah, at SummerSlam, you had that whole thing. So, um, it's fine. I mean, the way it
Yeah,
is. Now, the next match, finally, the one that we should have had probably a little bit earlier, Rusev and John Cena. And I'll tell you
Oh,
what, Rusev's entrance was pretty damn impressive.
oh, in the army tank.
It was cool.
I agree. That was badass. It's WrestleMania, man. I was like,
That's a
oh,
WrestleMania entrance for
yes,
sure.
it is. Oh yeah, totally. Just standing there with the Russian flag.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it literally looked like they were going to war, the U.S. and Russia.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, they really pulled it all out for that. I thought it was awesome. The way they had Rusev come out, I thought Lana looked super hot, if that's even possible. Even hotter than ever,
She
which is
is. Oh
impossible to do. But
man, it.
man,
I recommend you check out her Instagram. Whew,
I have not seen her Instagram actually. I've s-
recommend it.
I've seen her pictures before WWE, which I would highly recommend because she's not wearing anything in them, and can't say
she.
no to Lana with no clothing.
Oh, not at all. She is.
Yeah, she's
I
probably
would
the
I would
hottest
put a ring
diva
on that woman.
easily. Easily the hottest diva in a company in a long time.
Hmm.
Long time. And the crazy thing is, a little bit off topic, they actually date in real life, Rusev and Lana, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know how long, like their relationship has been before. They were on TV, but yeah, they just bought a house together.
Wow, so that's moving pretty quickly. I just don't
Yeah.
see them. I see them. I obviously on screen they work well, but off screen, I'm surprised actually that they've actually managed a real relationship. I know usually when you work together, it could lead to things, but those two, like, man, Rusev's like getting it done apparently because that's like reaching way above his
Oh yeah.
his
I,
expectations even. I mean, that guy is way overachieving.
oh, I agree. When I heard they were going out, I was like, no offense, Rusev, because you can probably kill me. But Lana, like, dang.
That's out of your league, bro. And the thing
Yeah.
is, the only thing you should watch out, Lana just completed or is completing doing a WWE film with Edge. And we know what Edge does. He steals
Uh,
your woman. So
oh yeah.
maybe there's no house that's gonna be bought soon because Edge is probably crashing it.
Oh, Edge. That was one of my favorite Edge moments is when Paul Heyman said at the old ECW One Night Stand pay per view
Hmm.
when he was shooting on everyone in WWE, he goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, hide your wives. It's Edge," and I was like, "Oh my god."
That's so true, though. I mean, I think him and CM Punk have been through more of the roster than anyone. In the
Oh
sense that, I mean, CM Punk's actually dated him. I think Edge slept with a bunch of them. Like,
yeah,
we have, but CM Punk actually has dated like half the roster, I think, of women.
yeah,
So.
and his resume is not too bad.
No, it's not. And I mean, you know what? And that I don't know if you watched the pre-show on the WWE Network. There was a chat room and a session with Lita, and
Hmm.
Lita looked damn good. I think she's getting
Yeah,
better age actually.
I agree. She's like wine.
Yeah, she is.
I
So that was
agree.
outstanding. But yeah, back to the match, Rusev versus John Cena. Yeah, that just shows we'd rather talk about the relationships outside of the ring because this match for me was boring. It was nothing special. It felt like a regular 9 o'clock or maybe a closing to a Raw
I
match.
agree. It was the most predictable match of the night.
We knew Cena. There was no chance that he wasn't gonna leave without that title.
Hmm.
But the match, I was just hoping the match would be more exciting. Back and forth, and it really wasn't. It was just kind of bland, and it just didn't stand out, especially on a night where everyone went to the limit and
Yeah,
brought their A game. I thought this one was just an okay Raw match type of match, but for a Mania, it just did not cut it.
I agree. Yeah, it's like because the way I saw this match is everyone knows Cena's walking out with the title.
Right. That's
Rusev made him
inevitable.
right. Rusev made him tap out at Fastlane. So this is an opportunity more for Rusev on the main stage to show everyone that he's the top dog.
Hmm.
And it was just his opportunity. Are you gonna, are you gonna take the chance and make some WrestleMania moments and show what you got,
Right. Lana
or
had a moment by being knocked off by him. That was a highlight of the match.
yeah,
She took a nice bump.
she did. She did. I was so surprised. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, I was too, and that's kind of sad that the highlight of the match is Lana taking a bump from Rusev, and not nothing that happened between him and Cena. I think that tells you everything about this match. How, and I think their biggest mistake, besides the mistake that they did leading up to Mania with the women's Diva match, I think the biggest mistake WWE made was putting that match on Fastlane. There's no reason those two should have fought at Fastlane.
I agree.
And if it was scheduled to be a match, I know you're trying to build a feud. You should have never let them actually fight. You should have given them like maybe 2 minutes brawl and then just take it outside of the ring and then be separated. That's all that should have
Mhm.
happened. You don't give it, and they got a legit half an hour match at Fastlane, which was ridiculous, and it made this one watered down.
I agree. I totally. That's what ruined it. The Fastlane match is when you made him tap out. You're like, okay, that's it. The rematch, you know exactly what's gonna happen.
Hmm.
Pointless match. Just hand over Cena the title.
Yeah, and the way they booked Rusev, he was going overly strong on Cena every week on Raw.
Mm,
You just knew there was no chance at all. So yeah, I just thought that was the most underwhelming match of the night. And you know what? And there's something. No, we're gonna go on to the Bray Wyatt match next, but for me, there's something about Rusev. As much as they're trying to build him, I still don't buy him as an intimidating or scary guy. Like for me, Bray Wyatt is like, well, when he loses or when he's in a match, you always believe he has a chance, or you're surprised if he were to
mm,
lose or look weak or whatever. With Rusev, I just don't buy him as an intimidating, even though he's got an intimidating look. For me, he just doesn't. He's not legitimate for whatever reason. I know he it was the most emptiest I think winning undefeated streak I've seen on a guy in a long time because I just knew that this guy isn't like undefeated material.
I agree. Yeah, I've actually been a Rusev fan since day one, but I agree with what you're saying about the undefeated streak. They basically gave him a bunch of jobbers throughout the streak.
Right. It reminded me of the Ryback push, you know?
Yeah,
It was very similar to that. Ryback was undefeated, beating up jobbers, and then suddenly when he got to fight the big boys, he started losing, and then he went, obviously to write down the pecking order. I don't think the same thing's going to happen to Rusev. I think as long as he has Lana, which I know there's rumors now, there's a big push that Vince wants to push Lana, which is smart to me.
yeah,
But I don't know if that means separating him from Rusev if she gets a bigger push, because what else could you do if she's with him? But to me, as long as he's with Lana, he's good because she's the mouthpiece that Ryback never had,
right.
and Rusev can't really talk. So you need Lana. She brings so much heat. She's the Paul Heyman of literally of the, she's probably the second best talker as a
Yeah.
manager, but she's just so good. She draws so much heat. And he needs her. If he doesn't have her, even seeing him come out like solo a few times on Raw, he just looked weaker, without her. He just looked like, okay, this could be bad, you know?
I agree. Yeah, it's because I feel like part of the reason is they make him seem too like what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like he's just basically a bulldozer. That's it.
Right. That's what he really reminds me of Ryback when that run for Ryback happened. There's just something missing with him. I mean, he's got the look and the physique and all that, but
Mm.
there's just obviously he doesn't talk, we know that, but there's just something missing with him that doesn't intimidate me or make me think that this guy is like legitimate world champion material. I don't think he is.
Do you think it's the gimmick?
It might be the gimmick. I think it's a strong gimmick as long as Lana's around because she keeps it alive.
Yeah.
But I think it really is, and him and Ryback have the same thing in common.
Mm.
They're both very big, swollen guys, but they're short.
Yeah.
And that hurts him in a sense where Cena is like face to face. You if you want to be a beast like that, you can't be only physically intimidating. You need to be height wise intimidating too. You need to
Hmm.
tower over people. And if you're looking eye to eye or you're smaller than some of the guys you're facing, but that's not intimidating, you know.
Right.
For me, you know, who's more intimidating? A guy like, you know, size wise, like a Kevin Nash, who's, you know, not as ripped or big, but he's just big in
Right.
size, and that's more intimidating. Is a guy that's taller and bigger than a guy that's smaller and bulky, you know. And same thing. Another thing was with Big E, another guy like that, you know, big
Yeah.
muscular guy but small, you know. I think that's a problem in a sense going forward. None of these guys have succeeded. Big E, Ryback, or I mean Rusev, the jury's still out, but these are three guys that were Biggie was supposed to be huge, you
Hmm.
know, huge push, huge, you know, heel. Same thing with Ryback, and they just never panned out. And I think their size is why.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Biggie, and I
Neither
remember
am I. He's got
when they
no
give
mic
him
skills.
when they give him the Intercontinental title, I was like, why?
They really try to push it, but that usually what happens that usually burns out on them and blows up in their face. And when he's separated from Ziggler too, and same thing with Ryback. And but the only thing is, that interesting to see where Rusev goes in the next couple months. I think that's going to be key for him. He could either sink or swim. He could either keep up the momentum and kind of be, you know, main event level type of guy,
Mm,
or he could just drop down to the lower mid card. I think really depends what happens with Lana.
right. Yeah, I agree.
And Cena, I think it's a good choice. I mean, it was obvious, but he's a really good guy to hold a U.S. title. I think he's going to add a lot of credibility to a title that's been an afterthought
Yeah, I agree. That's why him and Daniel bring back.
to
Um,
relevance. And you
right.
know, at least Intercontinental title did always have some kind of meaning. U.S. title had no meaning. You know, it's a
No.
WCW title, so I think for the first time ever since its WCW days, honestly, I think having them on Cena is going to mean the most that this title has ever meant.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because I remember when Sheamus had it and Dean Ambrose had it, they defended it like twice in like 5 6 months.
Right. And it was just so irrelevant. I
Hmm.
think Cena is going to defend it, and I think he's going to be carrying and see it every week. I think that title is going to really start building momentum and following. I think they need more than one title. I think they had a good thing going with the two world championships. I thought you had always two strong guys. Either
Mm,
obviously the WWE champion is always the biggest one, but you know, the world heavyweight title was considered pretty big too. It was a title for the up and comers, the
right.
upper tier mid card guys like Ziggler and Del Rio. But I think you need something along those lines, and it's been gone. It's either now it's boom or bust. You know, either you're the world champion of the entire company or nothing. And I think that you need to elevate these titles to be like a close second. You know, to a point
Yes,
where they're treated as the world title was before.
I agree. Yeah, because I mean, if you look at the history of like, for example, the Intercontinental title, so many of the IC champions have become world champions.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's always been like a huge stepping. A lot of people would say it's like a huge stepping stone, and it almost seems like once you're the IC champ, you're knocking at the door for the world title.
Yeah, and that's how it's been in the past. I mean, Warrior
Hmm.
defeated Hogan at Mania as the Intercontinental Champion. Hopefully, they're gonna try to do something similar with that, where the Intercontinental Champion is gonna get a world title shot, or you know, that means something to be that champion. And I really did like the interaction Brian had with all the former Intercontinental champions, like Roddy
Mm,
Piper and Steamboat and Bret Hart. I thought it was a cool moment.
that was. Or how about when they asked Ron Simmons if he ever won the title?
Yeah. Well, that's typical Ron. I mean, I did enjoy that they did that. I thought the backstage segment is needed. That's something, watching all these previous WrestleManias, the
Mhm.
one thing that really was a crucial part of each one of them was before each match. I mean, there's so many backstage promos and vignettes that they did that they really gone away with at these current WrestleManias. I mean, they rely so much on the, you know, the highlight package that they don't even do any like backstage interactions, which is
Very
needed.
true.
uh,
Very true.
yeah, there has been a lack of backstage interactions. The last WrestleMania I can trace that to is the one The Rock hosted 27, with the interactions he had with Stone Cold, and you had some backstage. And in the past, they used to do that often,
Yeah,
and it was good. You got to see people interact that you wouldn't usually see interacting, or you had funny segments, or just cool like moments, and they've been missing out on those. So it was really nice to see that.
I agree. Yeah, one of my I think kind of going off topic,
Hmm.
trying to keep it at the theme. Because I remember at WrestleMania 18, was it 18? Yeah, 18. They had a lot of little backstage segments with the hardcore title changing hands throughout the night.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but WWE website has been flirting with the idea of with the fans of what title would you like to bring back,
Yeah.
and they've been asking, European title, Divas, or Women's, and the hardcore title is the number one favorite,
Hmm.
and that would be awesome because that's you get a
It's
great
been a
backstage.
long time since that title was around.
Oh,
Attitude Era.
yeah.
Attitude Era. Yeah.
So I feel like that would be, that could help out a lot with backstage moments and help with time for the company.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And something they should keep in mind for sure. And I think they do a pretty good job asking the fans.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, can't be the hardcore title like it was back in the day, because they're more PG now, unfortunately.
Right.
But I
You
don't know.
still
I
have
miss.
guys that would fight for that title and make a good, you know,
And you can, I mean, you can also use it for the lower card guys. Give them something to do, not just float around there.
yeah,
But we'll see. We'll
yeah,
see
we'll
what happens
see.
with that.
What we did see was the return of the Undertaker and versus Bray Wyatt.
It's not WrestleMania without the dead man.
It's not, and it was cool to see him back. One thing I kept on standing in front of my mind. And that's like a minor problem, but I did have a problem. I know the WWE was probably hoping by the time this match started that it would get darker outside, and it was just
Yeah,
too bright, and the entrances were minimized because of that.
yeah. I remember I saw a tweet with the hashtag WrestleMania, and a lot of people said, I remember there's one specific one stuck out. I can't wait for it to get dark. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I agree because
It's
when it
been
gets
so light all night long.
the whole night, even the main event wasn't too dark.
Mm-mm. It was dusk, but yeah, I thought it's gonna get darker at least by the second match to last, and it just all day, and I think it kind of hindered it. I mean, they haven't done a West Coast Mania since WrestleMania 9 was the last time it was in pure daylight all day,
Yeah,
because all the other ones that they did outside have been in the East Coast, either New York, you had Florida, um, you had those, and by the third match, it's getting dark. It's dark already.
right. Yeah, and I think that's what it had to do. That it was on the West Coast. That
Yeah, and I think
thing.
that threw him off a bit. It was too bright, and I think WWE was a little bit disappointed with that they couldn't do the because they wanted the Wyatt, the lighters going on. That would have been a huge
Oh,
WrestleMania
that would have looked
visual.
so badass. Wyatts and Takers entrances outdoor at night.
Yeah, but so I think they missed a beat. I mean, just because of the weather on that, but overall, I like the entrances. I thought Wyatt's was weird but interesting. His
Oh, the
entrance.
scarecrows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I actually liked it personally.
yeah, I thought
I
it was
was
interesting.
expecting something for him,
It was
but
different, it was just different. Undertaker is always good entrance. It alternates every year almost. It seems whenever he comes out, either he has the minions, the guys in black hoods coming out, and
yeah,
uh, one year he has them, one year he doesn't. It's like you never know if they're gonna be there or not.
yeah, and you know what, Undertaker, man, he looked great. I thought this year
Yeah, I
compared to
think so
last
too.
year.
I like that he had shorter hair and it was kind of slicked back, but it wasn't, and it was dyed, but it wasn't like that weird, like, mohawk and the bald hair that he had the last 2 years. So I'm glad he looked so old the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. Last year, when he lost to Lesnar, he looked Like he should have been done a long time
Yeah,
ago.
and the previous year too versus Triple H when he had that mohawk when he got
Hmm.
escorted out with all three of them, he just looked old in that one too and weird, just looked odd. So I'm glad that they didn't have, he actually looked pretty legitimate and he looked good in the ring.
He
He
did.
went old school and
Oh,
he
that was
looked
great.
fresh.
He did, and even the fans were chanting, "You still got it."
Hmm. They did, and I think that was warranted. Um, I thought the match was also really good. Undertaker's top moments, or
Mhm,
matches. There was no high spots. Usually he does a high spot or jump out of the ring,
mhm.
But he kind of kept it, in ring and more technical.
I feel like did you hear what happened to Bray Wyatt beforehand?
He got injured apparently, right?
Apparently, he sprained his ankle during the warm ups.
Hmm.
So I feel like after I read that, whether it's true or not, or how I feel like once I read that, I was like, oh, you know what? The match is probably gonna be a little shorter, a little bit more. Um, they're gonna be a little bit more careful. Because I mean, a sprained ankle hurts.
Yeah, no doubt. If that's the case, it really was the case. And reports are true, then yeah, I'm sure it maybe altered the match. And obviously, that's something that would keep it not as long and you limit Wyatt, uh, who relies on athleticism actually for a big guy that he is.
Yeah, he moves around really well for his size.
He does, and even the whole creepy thing walk that he does on his hands.
Mhm.
I like that moment. I thought was pretty cool. How Taker rose up to that.
Oh,
Um,
that was so cool.
yeah, it
Because
was a
even
good
Wyatt was
match.
like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah, I love. I mean, his facial expressions are so good. Bray Wyatt's is just so good, and so believable. That's a guy that is believable as opposed to Rusev. He's the anti-Rusev for me because he's smaller, than Rusev in every sense, but he's a guy that you believe. You know why? Because he cuts good promos and his character, he owns his character so well,
Yes.
that you have to believe as him as being such an intimidator. He's an intimidator that I think they try Rusev to be and just fails to be.
Well, you can believe in Bray Wyatt a lot better than you can believe in Roman Reigns.
Definitely. Yeah, for me, I mean, the result was we probably thought that Undertaker would win. I think
Mhm.
two losses in a row would have been a little bit damaging, especially if that was in the end.
Yeah.
But I think Wyatt can recover. He looked strong in this match. I don't think that loss is gonna hurt him. Of all the things that happened, I think he's. I think Sting is hurt more by losing than Wyatt is, in a
Oh
sense.
yeah, I
Wyatt can
think so too.
recover very easily from a loss to Undertaker, because he can cover up with a promo, and I'm actually in a sense glad that they had Taker go over in case they still want to use him or not to diminish the streak. What Brock accomplished. So I thought I was all right with Wyatt losing because it didn't make him look bad at all.
I agree. Yeah, he could afford the loss.
He could. He definitely could, and he can recover from it too. That's most important. And I thought it was a really solid match. Obviously, Undertaker's put the standard so high that it's hard to match it, with
Yeah,
his classics. But I thought it was a good match.
especially for his age.
Yeah, it was good. So
So
yeah, I was pleased with that, and a good turnout. And I'm starting to think after this that Undertaker might have one final match in him next WrestleMania.
I agree. Yeah, I know.
I thought he's
It,
gonna look much worse.
yeah, I was a little scared how he was gonna rebound from his last year match with Lesnar.
Hmm.
He came back strong. He looks great, especially for his age.
For sure.
Um, and there's rumors going around that next year is the final, is his last one in
And I
Dallas.
actually believe that. I think he's got one more. I'm pretty sure he's gonna do. I could see how he would retire potentially after the Brock one, losing the streak,
Hmm.
but I don't think he retires after the wide one. It doesn't make sense.
I agree.
It would have made sense. I could see him walking away from losing the streak and that being it. And
Same.
now with Lesnar resigning, it's actually warranted. It's not a meaningless
Mhm.
streak. I think they gave it to the right guy. Looking back at it now.
Oh yeah, I think Lesnar. I know they. I heard some read online that they supposedly want to make him face. But I think Lesnar is a great heel.
Oh, he's unnatural, just like Orton is,
Mhm.
for
So that's
sure.
why whoever was gonna end the streak would get heat no matter what.
Yes, and
And Lesnar's the perfect fit.
he really is. And looking back, however, was if this whole re-signing thing has been huge because that adds more legitimacy to the streak ending
Mhm.
and to Lesnar being as dominant as he has been. So him re-signing played a huge portion in that because if he had walked away from the company a year after a streak, then Undertaker's potentially around for next year's Mania, and the streak was, gone for a guy that was around for a year.
Yeah.
So I thought that was definitely an opening for Undertaker to have another Mania match and end it in his home state,
Mhm.
not far from his hometown of Houston. I think that's going to be the place in of course, the biggest um, potentially, sellout crowd ever
Right.
in a mess WrestleMania that I could very well see Undertaker being inducted to Hall of Fame as the lead guy next year.
Yeah, that's I read that too that they might think of doing the Hall of Fame thing, his induction next year,
It would
and then
make
the
sense.
following night, his retirement match.
It would make sense, and I'd be okay with that actually if
Mhm.
it's a Undertaker kind of themed WrestleMania next year.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah, I mean, as much I know the WWE title's huge, but I think if it's true that he's done, I would put it as the main event.
yes, for sure. No, it has to be a main. If he's going to the Hall of Fame the night before, and I
Mhm.
think he would because they did the same thing with Shawn and Ric Flair. They did the Hall of Fame the night before their last match.
Mhm.
Uh, and I really think that would be the way to go, and you would have to have a main event for him.
And that's gonna be. I think if they build it around that, they'll sell out over 100,000.
I think so. I think especially in the home state.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to look forward to. But I don't think you're going to see Taker until next year's WrestleMania season.
Yeah, same. I think he go home. He's earned that contract, man. He's
Yes,
earned
for
that
sure.
contract. So I don't expect him to come back until maybe a month before
Yeah,
WrestleMania.
Royal Rumble time. Right
Yeah,
after Rumble makes
yeah.
sense. Now, what we also saw was a attendance announce. Usually, they have someone celebrity announcing attendance for Mania, which
Mm,
is almost 77,000, really high. I think it was
yeah.
76,900 something. By Triple H and Stephanie, who started doing their bragging bit, only to be interrupted by the guy that apparently never sleeps, never goes home, doesn't have a home apparently,
Yeah, he
because
is.
he's just traveling from country, state to state, across the country. The Rock is always on the go, and he was straight from Saturday Night Live in New York City
Mhm.
the night before to WrestleMania, and The Rock surprises everyone.
Yeah, I agree. That guy does not sleep.
No, he's like unhuman because whenever you think like, no, he's doing SNL, there's no way he'd make it. Like I was trying to think about it. Does he make a debut? But no, I mean the SNL goes maybe if it was like earlier in the day, and SNL goes late to like it goes to like 1 a.m. in the East Coast.
Right.
And then no, by the time he would get out of there, I mean, what is he gonna? No, he did. He did. He took a red eye and came straight to Mania. Apparently, probably went over the bit earlier in the day. I mean, the guy just literally never sleeps. Wow, it was an awesome thing to see The Rock come out and at Mania
It was, man. The Rock, he's just every time he comes out, fans love him. He's magic on the mic,
for sure.
and he brought out a special friend from the
Oh,
audience.
he did because the confrontation. And I'll tell you what, Stephanie McMahon recently, over the past couple months, she has been dynamite on a mic. She's
Yeah,
been
she
taking
is.
over for Trips. She's been literally taking away the mic from Triple H and dominating on it. And just, I think she's getting better heat than Triple H would. No joke.
I think so too. And you know what? I think she's learning from one of the best heel characters, I think, in
Yeah.
the Attitude Era. And I think she's trying to feed off that Mr. McMahon, that evil Mr. McMahon
I think
character.
she's mixing her Triple H with Mr. McMahon, which is a perfect combination, you know?
Hmm.
And she's been getting tons of heat, and she's been really good on the mic. So of course she does the confrontation with The Rock and blasts him and then kicks him out of the ring. But The Rock, I mean, he's from the Fast and the Furious series. He's got friends, right?
Oh, yeah, he's got friends everywhere, from LA to New York, you name it.
And he had Ronda Rousey in attendance at ringside. And you know what? I didn't hit me that until later on after the segment ended that she's actually in the Furious 7 movie with him.
Oh, wow.
She's in the movie with him. She's making her debut in a Fast and Furious franchise in this new one that's coming out. I had no idea.
I had no idea, because I know she's in the new.
She is, and she has a pretty apparently big role in she's in a sense taking over for Gal Gadot, who's now moved on to Wonder Woman. Um, but yeah, so she's gonna be in a new Fast and Furious movie, so that's pretty cool. And it didn't hit me earlier. I probably would have thought about it in a sense if they had mentioned when they showed her at ringside earlier in the night that she's starring in the movie, but they held it off purposely to not tip off anyone about The
Hmm.
Rock coming out. So I thought that was smart. Definitely didn't tip me off, but it was so cool seeing her in a ring.
Hmm. I agree. My favorite moment, though, just because I thought it was hilarious, was when
She hip tossed him.
it cracked me up because Triple H, to me, his reaction
He
when he like
sold it well.
he saw the he kind of reminded me of Ric Flair.
He did. Yeah, that's a good comparison. He really did. He sold it in that, over the top fashion, which has actually worked. So Ric Flair can oversell and make it look cool, but I
Yeah,
think Triple H actually made it look cool by overselling.
he was all, and then she went after Stephanie.
Oh yeah,
That was awesome. And Stephanie told her to get out of the ring, and she was like, "Make me."
yeah, and she just did a arm lock literally on her, which was really cool. I thought she would might hip toss her also, or maybe slap her, or maybe punch her. But I kind of like what they did,
Hmm.
doing that arm bar, takedown in a sense. Just it was cool. It was a your little UFC move.
Now, the question I have for you and the fans listening: what are your opinions on maybe Ronda Rousey coming to WWE after a UFC career?
I think the chances are really good because it seems that she is a fan of the product.
Hmm.
She's a WWE fan, legitimately. Not
Yeah.
only for WrestleMania, she's attended other events,
Hmm.
and she's spoke about it on Twitter and various media how she loves the WWE. Um,
Isn't she a huge Bray Wyatt fan?
I think so. Yeah, she's a legitimate fan of the business, which
Yeah,
is big actually. And there's no, she might be the hottest name in the UFC right now, and that's male and female, which
I
is
agree.
pretty crazy. Her
I would
fight,
definitely say so.
apparently recent fight, Dana White had said that he had never had as many celebrity requests for that fight for any
Hmm.
fight ever as much as that one. She's a sensation. She's a literally a main event type of like a crowd. She attracts like a huge following, and she's a must see TV type of
Yeah, she is.
fighter. So it's really cool. She's definitely one of a kind, and I could definitely see her in the WWE. And I think this opens a door for her to potentially, and I think actually not potentially, I think it's gonna happen
Hmm.
for her to have a match at SummerSlam,
I can see that. I could
either a
definitely see
mixed
that.
tag match with The Rock versus Triple H and Stephanie, or a one-on-one versus Stephanie.
I could. That would be awesome. I would definitely say, and I would love to see her in the WWE in the future. I think she can be.
I think
I
she'd
mean,
blend in. I think
I.
she's got what it takes to be in a WWE.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely that UFC background. She can be like. She can almost be like the female Brock Lesnar.
I was thinking that too. She's tough. She's an ass kicker. People believe in her,
Hmm.
and she could be really a female Brock Lesnar. I think this is the time now for WWE to start building up their women's division, which they are focusing on. And yeah, I could definitely see Ronda Rousey in a couple years, even. Kind of putting the fighting aside, and I could totally see her. And apparently, the relationship's good with her and WWE to
Mm.
make that move.
That would be huge for WWE, huge loss for UFC, huge gain for WWE.
I agree. I thought it was a good segment overall. I thought it was funny. I thought The Rock did his thing again, and as always, he's equipped with great lines and humor, and I thought the crowd was popping to that. They did apparently go over a little bit longer than they expected to, and I think that took away from the main event that
Okay.
followed. But yeah, I really enjoyed the segment. I thought it was a nice surprise to see The Rock come out. I thought the crowd loved it. It was a fun segment, way to incorporate a celebrity, and it's definitely a WrestleMania moment.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if you read this or heard anything this that I read a small, I don't want to say rumor, but people were assuming that the Rock spot was originally Stone Cold Steve Austin's spot.
Really?
That's, I don't know if that's true or not, how or
It
anything, but
potentially is. That seemed like the only guy that was missing that night because you even had HBK make an appearance too, in the
yeah,
DX thing. And I thought the only guy that was kind of missing, the huge name was Stone Cold. And
yeah,
yeah, I could see why, especially since Stone Cold's been having much more of a presence with WB lately on the network with the podcast that he's been hosting and different things he's been working on. He did the countdown for the 2K15, or at
yeah.
SummerSlam. So he's been more involved with WWE. It was surprising that he didn't make any sort of cameo. Last year, I mean, he had a big cameo at, to start off Mania.
Oh,
Him,
him,
Hogan.
Hogan, and Rock was
Yeah,
an amazing opener, in my opinion.
yeah, that was the highlight of last year's Mania almost in a
Yeah.
sense. But yeah, you had Hogan, you had HBK, you had The Rock. I'm surprised Austin didn't make an appearance, and maybe that was the spot. I could see him and The Rock in Fast, 7,
Hmm.
you know, Furious 7, so that they're co-stars. So that makes complete sense why they were there together and why The Rock is friends with her and brought her out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
because the rumor has it that there's something going on between Stone Cold and WWE,
hmm,
and that's the reason why they promoted. Because like you said, Austin's podcast is always mentioned on the WWE network.
yeah.
Well, coming up, I forgot when the exact date is. John Cena's doing a podcast on Jericho's.
That is true. Next Monday.
So they were saying maybe that's like a sign of something's going on.
Yeah, because there might be something. Actually, that's a good point because I mean, he's recently done the Triple H interview, which was like about a month ago or so,
Mhm.
on the WWE network. But the timing does seem a little bit off. Like, he didn't even make a backstage appearance or anything, which they could have easily done,
Yeah.
an encounter with someone just like a backstage. He didn't even have to come out.
Right.
Or yeah, and the Jericho, they never used a Jericho podcast on the network. They usually go to Austin for that to handle the big interviews.
Right. But
And
you know what? I would expect him next year though in his home state
for
of
sure.
Texas, and if they want to get that attendance record, I know Vince is gonna go all out for it.
Hmm.
So if he wasn't at this one, I'm like, you know what? I expect him to be at 32.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think thinking about it now a bit, I think there might have been a slight fallout that we don't know about, especially when he was throwing some darts at Vince and Triple H, especially
Yes.
Triple H on that podcast. And there was a lot of mention about CM Punk and why did that happen. And yeah, especially Triple H, he was he was shooting with him, and he was,
Hmm.
hitting him with some tough questions. That might have ruffled the feathers there a bit, especially
I
since it
agree.
was live on the network. It wasn't, um, I think maybe something happened there.
I agree. Yeah, because Stone Cold was giving the questions that the fans wanted.
Right,
So I agree. Maybe there were some questions being asked that Triple H events were like, yo, try to keep that a little bit more backstage.
right.
So
I think that could have happened. But even though the segment was a WrestleMania moment, it was awesome. I enjoyed seeing it. And then finally, when the dusk started settling in, the main event time brought us Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, the big matchup. And you
Man,
know what? Those two went at it.
yes, yes, they did. It wasn't a wrestling match. It was a fight.
It was literally a fight, what they build it as, and
Mhm.
Heyman built it as. And it was legitimate to me. I thought, you didn't want a wrestling match. We've seen enough wrestling matches. You saw Rollins versus Orton. That's a wrestling match.
Mhm.
But this should have been a brawl, and it was a brawl, and I'm glad they booked it that way because these are two guys, and Lesnar's just an ass kicker,
Yeah,
and there's no other way to go about it. The only way you could pull off Lesnar in an actual wrestling fight is with a guy like Kurt Angle, like they did at 19.
right.
Um, a mat technician, but Roman's just a brawler, and they booked it the right way. And I really thought they went out at it, and I enjoyed the way Roman was fighting back. He got demolished like
Yeah,
75% of the match, but I enjoyed how he was fighting back and kind of smiling and stuff.
I agree. Yeah, he took the beating. He he took the beating in a way which I feel like he should gain respect from
Yes.
fans. And I know a lot of fans were booing him. A lot of the internet wrestling community gives him crap, but you know what? After that match performance, I was like, you know what? It's like joining a sorority or something, and he took his ass kicking from Lesnar.
Yeah, and he did take an ass kicking. He took some legitimate stiff shots. He really did,
Yes,
and he took them.
I
Uh,
I, I feel like there were some moments in that match where, like you said, both of them they gave each other real hits or
yeah,
real
I
uh, knees.
definitely think I think they showed one that towards the end when Reigns just kicked Lesnar in the face and Lesnar's face just went wobbling.
Yeah.
That was a stiff shot, and I think Brock majority of the match he was just those kicks, those knees.
Hmm.
Um, this guy does not mess around. He doesn't fake punch or do much. He's pretty stiff when it comes to everything, and you kind of know that going into the ring with him.
Or how about those slaps to the face?
Those were pretty legitimate and definite monster shots.
Yeah, I was like, damn.
Yeah, those were good. I mean, that match felt very real and hardcore in a sense. How physical it was. The number one way to describe this match was it was just really physical and
Yes,
punishing, and
yes.
it came out that way. It wasn't too long. It was about like 15, 17 minutes, and I think they were supposed to go half an hour, but it was cut short because of the Rock segment. But you know what? I don't think I wanted them to go longer than that.
Nah. And quick thing that I read actually this morning. There's a little. Cause did you see the spot where Lesnar got busted wide
Oh, the
open?
blading? Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
controversy now.
which I was very surprised because I was like, they're usually.
PG.
Mhm. But I mean, I was surprised that they bladed. To be honest.
Yeah, so was I, but I thought it was necessary for that fight. It
Yeah.
really was. If you ever did it in a fight, I thought this was one that deserved it just
Mhm.
because how physical they were, and you had to have some sort of payoff for all these stiff shots and hits. And I thought some blood is good. Like I actually listened to JR's podcast recently. He did say there's still a time and point, where blood is good, even though they're a PG thing, where special occasions. I thought that was one of them.
Yeah, that's true.
And it
Like
made Roman look much more tougher, busting up Brock.
yeah, it did. It did. Roman, he. Did you see the picture up the ramp and he's holding his ribs? And I was like, man, he. It
He,
tested his It tested him out definitely.
he took
If
a
he
beating.
wants.
He took a huge beating for majority of the match. He did have a hot run, towards the end of it. I still thought it was a little bit too little, too late.
Mhm.
They definitely booked Lesnar to be dominant, but they also, even though through all the beating he took, he still looked better than Cena did at SummerSlam.
Yes,
He looked tougher, and he looked, whoa, this guy, he got our respect, basically.
yes, I agree. I saw some fans on Twitter saying the same thing that he looked better than Cena in the ring against Lesnar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
all right.
he did, and he looked pretty legitimate. It's a guy that he earned your respect, and I think that's what the fans were looking for, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And through this match, he took the stiff shots, and he really kind of flipped the table on him, even though the boos were still raining down for him. The predictability of Lesnar got cheered, and he got booed.
Yeah,
And I thought,
but
mm-hmm,
oh, sorry, continue.
well,
Sorry.
the matchup finish was interesting setup. How he went with like the consecutive Superman punches, the spears. He was on a roll, and Brock just kept on falling on the turnbuckles and bouncing off back and forth. I was really kind of surprised to see how that ending's gonna happen and who's gonna get the pin. I was almost anticipating, will Roman finally get it? I mean, with those punches, and or maybe is Brock gonna catch him last moment and
Mm-hmm.
F5 him? But no, we got WWE listens to me, so they might be listening to this podcast when it goes live, and yeah, of course they had to read my article because out comes Seth freaking Rollins
The loudest pop of the night.
for sure.
That was when I heard his music play. I could not. I got off the couch and I started going, yes, yes, cash it in now, run faster.
That was such a huge mark out popping moment for anyone watching. I thought, wow. The only thing when he was running to the ring is he gonna lose this match and cash it in, and that's the way they're just gonna take off the. I was just hoping that wouldn't happen. That they would just get the briefcase off of him, and
Mm.
oh, he had his little shot and he kind of missed it. Like,
That scared me because there was when Lesnar caught him and he was getting ready to F5 him.
uh huh.
That scared me because I was like, oh my god, he's gonna pin
That's what I
Rollins.
thought. That's what I thought was gonna happen. Oh boy, I'm like, damn, that is not. Roman's gonna look strong. He's not gonna get pinned,
Mm-hmm.
and Rollins is gonna get pinned instead. It's a three-way, so then that's how the match gonna end. And Rollins' briefcase goes away, and kind of protecting, Roman by sacrificing Rollins. But no,
Right.
no, no. I knew better. I knew that, like I said in my article, people should check it out on PW Mania. It's a Seth Rollins kind of WrestleMania, where I said that this
Mm-hmm.
has been the build of the century. They've
Mm-hmm.
been Seth Rollins as the guy and Roman Reigns as the placeholder. And Roman Reigns ended up being the placeholder because a curb stomp to Lesnar wasn't enough. And then Reigns comes in and he gets curb stomped. And that was the
Yeah.
finish. That's the 1, 2, 3. That Seth Rollins becomes the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion.
That was a great ending to the
Terrific.
show. Perfect.
You really
Grabs
couldn't
his
have done it any
title.
better. I think that
Exactly.
this was the ideal ending, dream ending. We always talk about,
Mm-hmm.
oh, WWE screwed up, or WWE, they went for the predictable, or they went for the bogus ending. For the first time in a long time, they gave the fans what they wanted. They gave a perfect ending that the
Mm-hmm.
Marks would have come up with.
Yep. Yep, I agree. They did not drop the ball this time. They gave the fans what they wanted. They did, and seeing Rollins at the top of the stage with the WWE title with the fireworks going off, I was like, man, this is gonna be so much fun to watch right now.
It is, and that's a WrestleMania moment right there, no
Mm-hmm.
question. That was one most definitely, and something. I mean, how can you not mark out to it? You hate Rollins, as a casual fan. You
Mm-hmm.
love him if you're a mark, but in that moment, I think everyone was not only in shock but like appreciated the ending.
I agree. Yeah, I saw like just like you mentioned right now. Um, I saw this really cool picture, and it made perfect sense, just like you said right now. If you're happy that he won, it's because he's a great wrestler. If
Hmm.
you're mad, it's because he's a great heel.
You can't lose.
Exactly.
You
I
can't.
was
You
I
can't
was
lose with him.
smiling ear to ear when that referee's hand hit for the 3 count.
It was the magical ending. It was for once WWE really did get it right, and they deserve praise for that because
Mm-hmm.
they finally gave something unpredictable, something out of the box that we always ask for. They
Mm-hmm.
really came through with it this time, and I'm definitely excited and happy that they pulled the trigger, and
Yeah,
they
yeah.
actually finally did it. They did something that we didn't expect. There's a first ever cash in at WrestleMania, has never
Yep.
happened before. A heel ends up with a title, the
Mm-hmm.
biggest heel of the night because he overtook Lesnar and Reigns at this point.
Yep.
So usually,
And the Rumble
WrestleMania,
winner didn't win.
yeah. And the thing is, and right, Royal Rumble winner didn't win. The current dominant champion didn't win, and a Money in a Bank becomes so useful again. It
Yeah.
makes you after Sandow kind of cashed it in and didn't win, it kind of took away, and Cena recently also cashed it in and didn't win. It
Mm-hmm.
took away the meaning from the Money in a Bank. The last
It
couple
did.
times, it just
It
didn't
did.
seem that legitimate anymore. But this restored the Money in a Bank. It definitely accomplished what they wanted to, which is Lesnar looks strong as it gets. He doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
pinned.
Exactly.
So
The
he
streak still looks strong.
Yes, because Lesnar goes away unpolished. This is the perfect way to take away a title without
Mm-hmm.
damaging him whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
Because now he can chase, and now he can keep on rolling with the storyline that he never lost. Roman, on the other hand, had a strong showing,
Mm-hmm.
and even though he got pinned, he still looks incredibly strong because he took out Lesnar, with that
Yeah.
spear, and it was a blindsided shot. It took away Roman, and he can argue too that he gave it his all, and he would have had the title if not for Rollins. So everyone looked strong in this match.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you see when there's a cool little video? Did you see when Rollins pins Roman? That for a split second, he like puts his face by his ear for a thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yes, um, I think it's two guys who are good friends, and Roman did do a favor for him here. Letting him have that moment because remember, this is San Francisco. This is Roman Reigns territory with all his friends and family. Everyone's in town. This was
Mm-hmm.
a big moment for him, main eventing his first Mania. You don't want to lose.
Right.
And you won the Rumble. This was a big thing for Roman to give up.
Mm-hmm.
And especially not only giving up to Lesnar, but he's giving up to his buddy. A guy that
Yep.
wasn't even involved in the main event. So I think definitely Rollins appreciated it, knowing what it meant to Roman. To get all the way here to the top and kind of now fall back,
Right.
and
I agree.
let him take his spotlight, literally. So I think it's two guys that are good friends outside of the ring, and it was a great moment, and it's cool. It's just cool, the way they did it. Um,
All right. They have
what a
so much history
WrestleMania!
in the past growing up too, with in the NXT, FCW NXT, the Shield,
hmm
and realistically, Roman sacrificed his WrestleMania moment, but he's gonna have the title in the future.
Yes,
He's gonna have other moments in the
and
future.
and there's no other opportunity that will make Rollins such a star and elevate him as this moment would have. You can't
Yep.
recreate a WrestleMania
Hundred
moment,
percent agree.
a cash
Hundred
in.
percent agree.
He could cash in on Monday Night Raw, like we said, or at Extreme Rules, and it wouldn't mean anything as much as it does that night. Uh,
WrestleMania, grand stage of them all, the
and
Super
it's
Bowl for
forever going to
professional
be
wrestling.
remembered, forever. It's not going to be forgotten. It's a WrestleMania moment, and on one of the greatest WrestleManias, and it's you can't take that away from him ever, you
You
know.
can't. You
And that's
can't.
what's
He's
going to
earned
always
it.
keep him at the high level, a main event level because of moments like that. And now, kind of going back to, what do we think? I threw out the thought last week, when we did the podcast, saying that for me, and I mentioned actually in the article, in the PW Mania article I spoke with, that to me, Seth Rollins' career parallels almost CM Punk.
Mm,
He's the new CM Punk in a sense that he came from the indies, a long
yep.
time indie worker.
Mm-hmm.
a small guy in stature. He's not ripped. I mean, he's not small technically. He's got average size,
Right.
height wise, but he's very slim. He's on the slim side. He's got that HBK Edge slash CM Punk build.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the very like thin, almost thin and ripped look, which isn't
Right.
intimidating or imposing. And then he's got the thing with the heel. How good CM Punk is as a heel. It reminds me of the way Seth Rollins is a heel.
Yeah.
Uh, they have very and their fighting style is very similar. They have that aggressive kind of almost karate like style, but
Mm-hmm.
also Seth Rollins is a little bit more aerial assault. From his
Yeah.
part, but they're very similar guys, in a sense, and their career paths are kind of almost mirror each other. Their rise to the top, and um, the way and CM Punk also evolved through Money in a Bank.
Yeah. That is
That
true.
was his way of getting through the top. So I think there's a parallel. So for me, he's most comparable to CM Punk. I can see the parallel, like you mentioned, to Shawn Michaels, and you can elaborate on that. And also, another guy is Edge. If he continues his career as a heel,
Mm-hmm.
he can become an Edge to
Oh,
me.
Edge was an entertaining heel.
And I think Seth Rollins is on that pace. Right now, to me, he's CM Punk. Um, who do you see him as most comparable to?
I told I never thought about Punk, but I can totally 100% see that from his in-ring style and coming up on the indie circuit for such a long time. Um, I think actually, yeah, I think look wise, not wrestling his ability, but look wise,
Hmm.
he reminds me of a young Shawn Michaels from
Yes.
the Attitude Era.
Yes, I agree.
Um, Probably not as silly as Shawn, much more serious. But his wrestling style and he wrestling style, Punk, heel persona
Edge.
of Edge.
And the look of Shawn Michaels. I think
Yes,
we have a combination of all three guys in
yes,
him.
yes. I totally agree. I never really thought about that, but I'm like, wow, that is actually spot on. When Edge was a heel, Rollins like this, his in-ring ability, Punk, and then just look wise of a younger Shawn Michaels. But I think I I'm a huge Seth Rollins fan.
Hmm.
Since his FCW days, I didn't see him really much on the Indies until now on
Yeah, it used to be
YouTube.
Tyler Black on the Indies and part
Yeah,
of the Kings of Wrestling, which was a great tag team.
that was with Cesaro, no,
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
and I think, like I said, a huge fan of his. I think his potential is through the roof. I think when his career is all said and done, he's got the potential to be one of the all-time greats.
I agree. You got to
Maybe it's
remember,
early to say, but that's what my prediction is.
you know what? I think you're onto something because this is only his really, I mean, yeah, his first singles match at WrestleMania,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Uh but really it's like his third WrestleMania. They made their debut at 29, the
Mm-hmm.
Shield, and they were kind of fresh off that case debuting. He hasn't even been around for 3 full years and he's already got the world championship at Mania and just a memorable run as being portrayed as a top guy in authority for the entire year. This has been the year of Seth Rollins
It is.
since literally a calendar year of Seth Rollins since the Money in the Bank, the setup when he turned on the Shield, which was right after
Not,
Extreme Rules last year.
yeah, so it's barely a year almost of
Yeah,
his first year by himself.
and he's dominated the entire.
Mm-hmm.
He's carried the company. Roman Reigns was here and there. He got injured. Was gone for a while. Dean Ambrose had a nice run. But
Mm-hmm.
it's Seth Rollins was just consistently on the top, and the featured heel and the guy that was most presented every week on TV, by the authority and built up was Seth Rollins, and it never stopped. And this is the payoff finally. It was a long burning, almost a
Mm-hmm.
year long payoff, but it
Yeah,
worked.
and you know what too? He can talk on the mic.
He could, and he's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's got that funny. He's got that real lifelike kind of like arrogant, cocky, you know, heel. You know,
Yeah.
it was also cowardly too. You know, that's his persona. But on the mic, he's arrogant and cocky. You know, and
Can you
he's got a
can
dash
you
of funny too. You
can
know,
you say that on the mic he's almost like a old school Triple H when he was a heel?
I could say that. I think that's a good comparison because, like you said, Sean was a little bit too silly. You know,
Mm,
Edge was too angry. You know,
yeah.
and CM Punk was too rational. You know, everything CM Punk spoke about is just shoot. You know, in a sense, it was
Yeah.
always a shoot and very like thought provoking. I think Rollins is cocky, funny, and arrogant. You know, but he's got that little bit of that Triple H thing to him too. You know, um, when Triple H used to cut promos. So yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah, and we're comparing him to a bunch of big names.
Big time names, and we're talking to all legendary guys.
Exactly, Hall of Fame guys.
I think where his career's headed, and he's this is going to be that was the year of Rollins that we really didn't kind of see in a sense. We overlooked it, but now it's in front of us, and I think he's going to have a nice run. I think it would be a huge mistake to take the title off of him anytime soon.
I agree. I think he'll keep the title throughout the summer. I'm excited to see him feud with Roman.
I think it's gonna be a great feud. That's a natural feud built in.
And we've all been waiting for the Shield to feud with each other. So who knows? Maybe we can see Dean Ambrose
He
at the
might
end
be
of
added
it.
to the mix by SummerSlam. I could see
Right.
that.
So the thing is, though, does Rollins hold the title and then drop it at SummerSlam to Roman?
I think so. I think Brock is gonna leave the title picture with the suspension as we're gonna mention.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen. Actually, I think um, one thing I wanted to note
Mm,
is that the biggest winner, obviously, of WrestleMania was Seth Rollins. You
mm,
had Roman looking strong and Brock being strong too. But the second biggest winner, and now I'm not counting Daniel Bryan and John Cena, has been Randy Orton. Because think about it, Randy Orton just beat the new WWE champion cleanly the same night.
that is true.
He beat him
That is true.
cleanly, and that means for me, Randy's being positioned as a top babyface now, overtaking Bryan and John Cena. That means he not only beats Seth cleanly. I don't think their feud's gonna. They might continue that feud potentially until the Roman thing. I don't think you do Roman and Rollins right away. I think it's too
Right.
fast. You got to milk that one. I think you continue Rollins versus Orton, but then what you do, you elevated Randy Orton to be the top now of the main event as a babyface. I think he passes up Daniel Bryan and Cena, who'll be working more with a younger talent, you know?
Right.
But that means one thing to me. That means when Brock Lesnar comes back, and we're going to be teased something around SummerSlam probably, the perfect guy is Randy Orton versus
Yep.
Brock Lesnar, a match that we have not seen and we've been waiting for a decade, to see. And I think Randy Orton as a top face now, going against finishing his feud with Rollins, perfectly entering into Brock Lesnar picture, and that's who Brock Lesnar can come back for. I
That
think
would be
that's a
amazing.
setup that is like match made in heaven that they really kind of accomplished through this mania because Randy looks stronger than ever now and he's on cloud nine with a
Mm.
push coming his way and I think him and Lesnar are on a collision course.
I agree. If you saw SummerSlam with Roman versus Seth and Orton versus Lesnar, those are
Epic,
two big matches right there.
big time matches.
And I
And if
yeah,
you do a Rock and Ronda versus Triple H and Steph, that is huge.
three. Wow, that would be it. That's
That's
something to
mania
watch.
like. That is mania like right there.
Yes.
And the thing is, they're actually doing first time in a long time. They're taking SummerSlam back to New York, so it's a big deal that they're going back to They're going to Brooklyn. So I think it's gonna be a big deal for them to go to New York, um, for SummerSlam this year. You know.
And they do. They for the past few years they've been wanting to push SummerSlam as their number two pay per view of the year.
Yes.
So I mean, if you want to make it like your second WrestleMania, then that's 2 3 matches right there that you need.
And I think they're all very possible to happen. And I think what you accomplished, not only with Rollins coming out as a huge star, I think Randy Orton is back established right at the top of the food chain, and this might be his strongest run in a while, actually,
Yeah,
coming up right here.
yeah. I didn't really think about it till now that you mentioned it. He beat the champion, so he's gonna say, you know what? I beat him. I want a shot at the title. You
Mm-hmm.
get that for a few months, 2 months, for like say for example, I don't know, whatever they decide, and
And
then
just keep
after.
on building Randy as a babyface. Have the
Mm-hmm,
authorities screw him over and over. Get the fans even more behind him.
mm-hmm,
To where he becomes a number one guy. Like I said, I think you're gonna see Cena and Daniel Bryan kind of work with the mid card, and I could see Cena working with the up and coming talent.
yeah, yeah,
Continue with Rusev obviously, and then Daniel Bryan focusing on the mid card, upper mid card. With the Barretts, the Zigglers, the Dean Ambrose type of guys.
yeah.
So I think that's where it's going.
In your opinion, because in the past few years there have been rumors of unifying the U.S. title and the Intercontinental title.
Hmm.
With Cena and Bryan as champs, do you think can you see that happening?
I don't see it now because they're doing an emphasis on two separate titles and they're really pushing both titles. I think it would be counter unless if you were to do it, you gotta make it legitimately as big as the world title was before,
Mm,
as the second major title, which means that if you're like the unified intercontinental US champion, that means you get to have a match with the WWE champion.
okay.
It's that step like to the side almost of the WWE championship. I don't think this is the time now. I think this eventually might happen
Mm,
by maybe end of the year. Um, Maybe Survivor Series or so,
okay.
or even maybe Rumble. But for now, you try to build these titles individually and build their divisions. The
Yeah.
divisions these are upper to mid card titles,
Mm,
and they're gonna have to build the card by having those two guys at the top building that card.
right. Yeah, I agree. I for one don't want to see them unify the titles, but I just wanted to hear your opinion on it.
Yeah, I think it's too early. I think they've invested now too much with these Mania matches for them to unify it. I think they got to milk it a bit and see where it takes them. And I think it's going to be really good for these titles to be exposed to these two guys. Um,
Oh,
so yeah, I mean, I thought overall WrestleMania was outstanding. Top three. I'll put it right now as my number two Mania.
number two.
Number two next to 21. I thought 21 was just it changed everything and it set up two future, franchise guys and Cena and Batista, and they were and Cena still is. And I just thought the overall show was just outstanding and the match qualities that it was the first ever Money in a Bank,
Right.
um,
Oh yeah, I forgot.
with Edge winning. I just thought it was the best WrestleMania to me, and I love the promos for it. It was just great.
That was the
But that,
WrestleMania goes Hollywood.
yep, and this one was the second best all time, and that's saying a lot. Uh, that this WrestleMania, because you just think about it, all these WrestleMania moments that we mentioned. You have
Yeah.
Seth Rollins coming out as champion. That's a WrestleMania moment, cashing in. Rock and Ronda, WrestleMania moment.
Yep.
You have well,
DX and that WO.
WrestleMania moment. That RKO that he did on Rollins, that's a WrestleMania finisher moment.
Yeah. Oh
Uh,
man.
there's so many moments and Daniel Bryan, I mean, coming out on top of that ladder, that's a WrestleMania moment too, a great ladder match for the Intercontinental title.
Oh
So you have like five legitimate and obviously DX and NWO, and that's not even including Sting versus Triple H locking up for the first time.
yeah.
There's 5 to 6 legitimate WrestleMania moments, which is hard pressed.
Yes.
Last year's had obviously Bryan winning a title, over those two guys, and it had Brock defeating a streak. Two legitimate ones, but this one has triple the amount.
Right. Yeah. I agree. It's definitely easily my top three. I'm still debating between if it's two or three.
Hmm.
Because my favorite all time is 17.
17 was great. I thought that turn and that final match was just a classic.
And then that TLC match to me is just
That was a really good one too. No, that was a very solid, really good WrestleMania too. I mean, I will never forget. I always think about the biggest turn at WrestleMania was the Austin turn.
when he ended up teaming up with Vince.
Hmm.
No one saw that one coming.
No, and I
Uh,
mean, yeah, and then you kind of look back at all these manias. I mean, 13 had the best match ever, which was the Bret Hart Stone Cold, the
oh
most
yeah,
iconic match ever at Mania. Um,
with Stone Cold passing out for the
right.
sharpshooter.
That was the most iconic match at Mania. The biggest shocker and turn was obviously at the one you mentioned. Um, but yeah, I think this one had overall the most WrestleMania moments,
Yes,
which
yeah,
definitely counts for something. And
it was.
21 for me was the changing of the guard,
Yep.
the new guys getting the reins, no pun intended, uh, to the future, and they really carried through with it. It
Oh
was the
yeah.
JBL passing the torch. It was Triple H passing the torch for the first time because he never really put over anyone before that.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I think 20. You got a small sample, and
20
21.
got ruined. I think that would have been one of the top ones, but with Eddie and Chris Benoit, you can't talk about it, so it almost gets erased, from our
Yeah.
memory. This is one
Yeah.
where two guys like that was the WrestleMania of the underdog,
Mm-hmm.
and but now you can't talk about Benoit, so that's flushed out, and
Unfortunately, yeah.
then Eddie is just like he's gone, so it's like it doesn't hold that weight. It's more like of now like a memory type of thing.
Right. Yeah. And it sucks, but like you saying, like with Cena and Batista winning 21. I remember the year before Cena winning the U.S. title with Big Show,
Hmm.
and then fast forward a year later, cementing as these are the top dogs now.
Yeah,
So yeah, I never thought of it that way, but you make a great point. WrestleMania 21, that was officially the passing of the torches.
it really was because the 20th was just the underdogs finally getting their shining moment. But the real passing of the torch was 21. Um, so yeah, I thought this is obviously, if we're talking about this, no question being a top three WrestleMania, then definitely we're on to something. And this was a classic, memorable event that we witnessed. There's been 31 of these, so for this to be a top two or three
Mm-hmm.
is like historical.
I agree, and I think 32
Hmm.
has potential to pass this one.
Which is crazy to think because this was just so good. But
Mm-hmm.
if they're really gonna build all these things, they want to sell that attendance record and they want to just make it the most memorable. If they bring back all these legends, Austin, for a match, God knows would they be able to get a deal with CM Punk? You know,
Oh man.
that would be huge. Obviously Brock's gonna be there. You're gonna have most likely Taker. I think Sting's gonna be there. I really do. And you can get if you can get Austin into a match,
That's a huge seller right
that would
there.
be a huge seller. I think you're gonna have Brock versus Rock. I think that's one is pretty much a given. I think that's what
I,
they're gonna set up.
we're
Uh,
overdue for that rematch from 2002.
yeah, I think that's the big match that they're planning. So I could see that. Would there be an HBK match maybe? Versus
Yeah,
Triple H or something.
they were saying that pretty much the only legend to not, hold your breath on is Ric Flair. That he's the only one that
because he's just too old.
yeah.
Because I wouldn't even want Ric Flair to be.
No.
I would want him and Hogan to make an appearance for sure,
Mhm.
but you don't want them wrestling. At this point, by next time this year, they're going to be even older and further removed. No thanks. Like I don't want to see the geriatric, WrestleMania. Uh, you just some things are left, untouched, and that should be one of
Right.
them.
Yeah, he had his time. Nature Boy had his
You know who
time.
I wouldn't mind seeing? And another guy, I was thinking about the Hall of Fame. There's a couple guys that for me to deserve the Hall of Fame and one more match. And I think it's Goldberg.
Yes.
He needs a
Yes.
Hall of Fame induction, and he could easily get it. He doesn't have to be a headliner. I think he could be a great number two guy,
Mhm.
next to Undertaker or something. Just like Kevin Nash was next to Macho. They always have like a number two guy,
Right.
and I think Goldberg would be the perfect number two guy, and a guy that just have a retirement match also at Mania next year. I think the fans would love it.
I agree. Yeah, he has been flirting with the idea because he has said that he wants to do one last WWE match for his son to watch him wrestle.
That's right.
And his last match with Lesnar was not what we expected.
It was a joke.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember at the time as a little kid, I was so excited about it. And I was like, oh, this is so awesome. And looking back at it now, everyone knew these two guys were leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And these two guys did not give a damn. And they were just like, screw it. We're getting paid. Doesn't matter what we do.
Right.
And he can't go out that way.
No. I thought it was like a bad. Remember, this was next to Sting. Goldberg ruled the late '90s. Mid
Yeah,
to late '90s. It was Sting, NWO through the early '90s. Early '90s was Sting. Then middle '90s was NWO, and late '90s was Goldberg.
yeah,
And he's a top three part of WCW, literally.
yes,
So you gotta have him not only acknowledge that, but give him a Hall of Fame thing. I think he
yes.
deserves it of all the people. Another guy who I was thinking about, kind of watching these old WrestleManias, um, another guy that deserves the Hall of Fame to me is Lex Luger. I think Lex Luger had a really good run in the WWE
Interesting.
in the mid '90s, early to mid '90s. He was such a big featured part of their programming. I mean, he for a couple years span, from like
Yeah,
Mania '93, from like '93 to '95, Lex Luger was like huge baby face. He came in
yeah.
as a heel, but he was huge for that company. He had a main event match in Mania. He tied the Rumble with Bret Hart. I mean, for me, I think he's done enough. I know he had a huge fallout with Vince, but if Macho can get inducted, I think Luger. I mean, I didn't think Rikishi deserved it, but I mean, Luger does deserve. We're talking about guys who were crucial parts, even if for a short while, of the company, and he really was.
Well,
And
because that's when Hogan left for WCW or his retirement,
yeah,
and he was getting pushed to take over as the top dog.
and he had the whole American gimmick too, almost
Yeah.
like Hogan's gimmick, with
Mhm.
the All American Lex Luger, with American tights and all that. I mean, just think about it in this way. When you have a guy in a video game, remember that old classic Acclaim video game, WrestleMania, the
Yeah,
arcade game?
yeah,
Who was in there? You had Lex Luger. If he
yeah.
was good enough to be in a video game, and it was featured at the time, that means he must have been someone big.
Right, right.
Um,
And like you said, if Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man can get in,
and they had horrible relation, much worse than Luger did with
yes,
WWE.
if they can fix it up with them,
And,
I
and
think
Bruno,
it's
don't forget
possible.
about Bruno. Bruno was the worst potentially. Bruno Sammartino, you know,
Oh, didn't he like hate
he
like
hated WWE, like literally hated. He said he would never even step a foot in the ring. I mean, yet Brett. Brett had a horrible relationship,
that's true. Him too, yes.
And another guy, what about Owen Hart? It's time now that Macho got in, you know.
Yes.
it's time for Owen to get in, and that's something that might also happen really soon. I think that's something that should happen.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that the Owen Hart situation is because of his widow.
Yeah, there's a lot of legal issues as
Mm-hmm.
she has like prevented WWE from like using his name or likeness or mentioning him. So it's kind of beyond the heart now. It's not about Brett or anyone. I think it's still a legal battle, but I do believe there was some kind of settlement that eventually did happen, over the last
Yeah.
year or so. So I think it's now they would be able to use them. So, I mean, there's more to look into that, but I think that's kind of getting to a point of settling, if not already settled.
Okay. Yeah, he definitely deserves it. And I know there's an online petition going around for the British Bulldog as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's crazy. You almost think he's in, like you just like don't even realize he's not in. That's a guy that for sure should be in. And, especially you sometimes use those gimmicky type of guys, like you had a Kamala get in a few years ago, Junkyard Dog, How about Doink the Clown? He was huge part of the 90s, legitimately.
He's got my vote. I've always been a Doink fan.
We loved Doink. Growing up as a kid, you loved Doink the Clown. He
Yeah.
was also part of that arcade game. I think Doink the Clown has to be a part of the WWE, Hall of Fame. It's not like, oh, such a legitimately great, but as a
Right.
guy who was like a noticeable company guy that they promoted heavily.
Oh yeah, I agree. There's a bunch of guys I think you can think of that they weren't. They weren't world champions. They
Yeah,
weren't the all-time
but they
greats.
played crucial roles and appeared
Exactly.
at WrestleMania. Like another guy's Bam Bam Bigelow,
Yes. Oh, how many big guys that moved around the ring like him?
Not many. Not many.
Yeah.
That guy had like the athleticism, crazy athleticism that you've never
Yes.
seen before.
I think that him and Vader are two of the best big guys in the ring.
Oh, and Vader, another name too, to
Mm,
consider. There are some names still surprisingly not on the WWE Hall of Fame, over guys that shouldn't. Like I don't think Rikishi should be there,
I
you know,
agree.
and yet he is, and kind of makes you think, okay, all these guys we just mentioned are better than him by far.
I think, honest to God, I think it has to do something with politics because Rikishi's got his school in California, and he helped discover Rusev.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, Rusev is a graduate from Rikishi's wrestling school in Cali.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, so
There
I
has
think
to be some politics. You're right. And the
yeah,
whole thing with his sons.
his sons, he's related to the Samoan
And they
legacy
love
family.
adding the Samoans. They love adding all of them, to further Roman Reigns's, storyline and then the Rock storyline, They love adding as many Samoans as they can to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean nothing against them, but I
Not all of them
definitely think
deserve
that
it.
has right. Do you think the Brooklyn Brawler is a Hall of Famer?
And I think on this note, we should be done with the Hall of Fame. No, he's not a Hall of Famer. Definitely not. But yeah, overall, just a tremendous WrestleMania, a
yes,
classic that we won't forget for a long, long time. And that brought us to Raw the following night. And we know that Raw is the biggest Raw of the year, always following WrestleMania.
correct.
It's the biggest show of the year, and it's always the rowdiest and most unpredictable crowd of the year, with a bunch of people singing and chanting and all kinds of weird stuff.
Oh yeah,
So that's always a fun night. And it's always usually the best Raw. I think they usually have a bunch of debuts and
yeah.
surprises. Um, on top of it, top to bottom of the show, what'd you think of the Raw? Did you like it? Did you thought it was a bit of a disappointment or
Um, you
exceeded?
know, it was better than your average Raw,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it was your. I don't think it was as big as your typical Raw after Mania.
I agree. I think the last few years they did a really good job with the Raw after Mania. You had Ziggler cashing in his Money in a Bank a couple years ago. I mean, yeah, he started with the whole Brock thing 3 years ago. When
Yo,
Brock came out. I mean, that was just a huge moment. And I honestly think the past few years, the Raw after Mania overshadowed the previous night's Mania.
Mhm.
Where you were talking about the Raw longer than you were after the Mania. That just shows how underwhelming kind of the Manias were, but how
Yeah,
good these Raws were too.
because
Uh,
didn't Rock challenge Cena on the Raw after Mania?
he did.
So yeah, I mean exactly what
It
you're saying.
started then, and
Yeah.
and then you had Brock Lesnar. Then the following year, you had Ziggler cash in.
Mhm.
Last year, not sure what happened, but also I know it was a great show. From what I remember, this year it was a wow. That's like the Raw of the month.
Yeah,
That type of feel to it. The
yeah,
main event was very underwhelming. A 6-man tag that we would see on any regular Raw.
yeah.
I thought the only strong point about it was the whole Brock thing where he just tore through everyone.
Oh, that
Um,
was awesome because it makes Rock look unstoppable.
really did. And especially taking out the announcers, I loved how they did that.
Yeah. He just went ape shit. It was just,
It
it
was
was
cool to see. It was cool to see the
yeah.
domination. The last time I reminded me someone just taking out someone like that was the Nexus.
Oh, that was a great storyline.
Where they just destroyed everything on Raw and announcers and stuff. So I thought that was the last time that someone really dominated like that and destroyed everyone. It was
Yeah,
well booked. I love how they came out. They started a show with him that Heyman cut a promo, obviously geared towards Rollins,
hmm,
and giving acknowledgement to Reigns. So I thought that was well started.
right.
They did that well, and Brock just going out and destroying. But then it was just kind of downhill. Not much really
Yeah,
happened. It was just, you had Cena had a decent match with, Ambrose, open challenge for the
yeah,
title. But everything else, you had Adrian Neville, debut, which was a
right.
really nice debut. That guy can wrestle.
Yeah, he can. He's got some good moves.
Oh, great moves. That spinning. Uh,
Corkscrew thing.
oh my God, corkscrew from the top row. That's just awesome.
And it's
He,
cool because when I saw Neville wrestle last night on Raw, the first thing that popped in my head was NXT, and I was like, man, we're gonna get spoiled with some amazing in-ring talent in the future.
yes, yeah. There's some really really good guys coming up, and not only are they just like good on the mic, good looks. They're great in ring guys,
Mm-hmm.
all of them. That's the exciting part. They're actual good wrestlers.
Yes, and I was also a huge fan of. I didn't really watch them that much. I've heard of them in NXT. The Lucha Dragons.
Did you see that one? He was just destroying everyone.
That little guy, right?
Yeah.
He was. That is some straight up Lucha Libre style right
That's
there.
real. You know what? That's what they wanted the original Sin Cara to be, okay?
Yeah,
When he came over from Mexico. Not Hunico, who plays Sin Cara right now,
yeah,
but the original Sin Cara. And he just kept on flopping and missing spots and just being a complete, like, I don't know what was up with that guy. He just couldn't keep on his feet. He had so many
yeah.
botched moves and misses. He just completely failed. But this is what you were hoping for.
And
And this
man,
kid is dynamite. I mean, he's a pimped out version of Rey Mysterio.
yeah, yeah.
You
And
know?
he's so in. He's I think only like 5'7".
It
This
doesn't
guy.
matter because his moves are so awe-inspiring and
Yep.
breathtaking. It takes you away. You don't even care how small he is. You just
Yep.
kind of like wonder. Like it gives him actually more props for being so small and being able to like move people around. Especially that move he did to one of the, um, who was he in a ring with that he did that
He was with Cesaro.
Cesaro. I mean, Cesaro, a big guy, and for him to like flip him like that, that
It,
scissor flip. Oh, it was just awesome.
to
Uh,
me, that was my second favorite moment of the night
yeah,
to see that
it,
guy move around in the ring like
it
that.
really was. That was just like pure magic. That was like real lucha libre stuff that we don't get to see. That we
Yeah.
just hear about. But that was like legitimate stuff. So I thought that was. I really like that tag team. Just keep away Sin Cara from working alone.
Hmm.
He,
Yeah. Well, he
he
can't do it, but I
but
like the
this
tag
tag
team.
team, that's legit.
Yes. like them better than what you call the Ascension.
I don't even acknowledge them. They're just a complete failure and a joke. I mean, you know when they failed? When one of them is named Connor. Okay? That's when you fail. You can't try to look like the Road Warriors or intimidating. Victor, I could see. That's kind of a badass name. But a Connor sounds like a nerd from like math class, you know? Like, there's no way a guy like that looks like, oh, Connor is gonna kick your ass. No. It should have been like the Destroyer or something. That should have been his
Yeah,
name, you know? Or the Reaper or whatever, not Connor. It's just
yeah, man.
bad booking and no, they're failure. They're a failed experiment.
They
Plus,
are.
they're not even good in a ring either.
They're not. I've heard about them in NXT, and I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to see them on the
Look
roster.
cool, but not anymore. They flamed out immediately. I think the team that you got to look out is for this team.
Yeah,
This Lucha Libre team really,
the Lucha Dragons, they
and
were, and the fans love them.
yeah. Oh,
Fans
of
love them.
course. I mean, how couldn't you? You got to pop for that, and it just puts the Los Mataderos to shames. You know,
Yeah,
they just can't do. I mean, you know, it's primo, you know, in the
yeah,
ring, but it's still it just makes them kind of look like a joke. You know, these are the legitimate guys to compete against. I think you have the three really strong tag teams. You have the
yeah.
Usos, you have them, and you have the tag team champions. You know,
Oh, I would love to see the Usos against the Lucha Dragons.
that would be really good. Get rid of the Los Matadores. They're not getting over.
They're
Get
not
rid of the
getting over.
Ascension and create a new tag team, you know, instead in that place to be the fourth tag team.
Yeah,
Um, or maybe bring over someone from NXT, you know?
yeah. I trust NXT a lot.
Oh, I do too. So far, they've been hitting on gems. And, you know, and we're even talking about this. If that's a highlight of the Raw after Mania, then you know much didn't get accomplished, you know?
Mhm.
What I was hoping for, had they agreed to it or something, was maybe an announcement. First of all, they made a huge mistake by not having Sting on Raw, actually. You know,
Yeah, that's
that Raw needed him live.
they did. I saw, and his announcement was only like maybe 5 minutes
Right. It
on the
was nothing. It
network.
was just like a little excerpt. You know, they could have been much longer if it was on Raw.
Right, and they always want ratings. That would have gotten a lot of ratings on USA, but I think they just want to be selfish with the network.
Yeah. It was a
So
completely selfish move. If I was USA, I'd be pissed off because you just took away a potentially a huge segment, a money making segment, you know? That's like, oh yeah, USA, you pay the bills, but F you, we need it on a network, you know?
right, and then you saw the segment, right, or no?
I didn't, but I mean, I,
They
I know what it's about, you know?
they
Uh,
brought out Bo Dallas.
yeah,
I was like, really now? You're putting Bo Dallas with Sting?
which is a joke in itself since it's not the Bo Dallas of like 3 months ago when he was actually getting over, you know?
Right.
It's the Bo Dallas that failed in a sense, you know, that is a jobber now. Uh,
Yeah,
it's just a bad move. They could have done so much better. I mean, what I was hoping for is an announcement to one Mania match for next year already, like a
right.
year and ahead. And the only one you could really do is Undertaker versus Sting, you know? You keep those guys away, not fighting, you know? And you could build it that way, you know?
And you know what? He knows it. He knows it too because when Renee Young asked him what does the future hold, the fans they chanted Undertaker, and you can tell by looking at his face like, I know that's what you guys want, but we'll
Hmm.
see.
Exactly. I
So
mean, it does depend technically on Taker if he can go another one if he wants to. He's not the quickest one to announce, like, yeah, I'm coming back right away. He takes his
right,
time. So maybe that's the holdup, but I would have liked some kind of potential match being set up for next year. That's what they should have accomplished from this Raw, and they really didn't accomplish much. They
right,
sent Lesnar packing home. It would have been much better if he had interfered at the end. He didn't leave the arena like they usually don't, you know?
right.
He came back in, destroyed a bunch of people, and left everyone in a ring in that match laid out cold. That would have been a much better ending.
I agree.
But
I
you just did nothing. Like, you didn't, you know, nothing got escalated. Just a regular Raw to me. you know, a
different.
slightly more entertaining regular Raw, which
Yeah,
was not what I expected. So I thought it was like, in a sense, a failed attempt for them with a Raw because nothing got accomplished.
I agree. Yeah, yeah, it's like you said. It would have been kind of cool to have Stephanie suspended Brock, but he still came out at the end to take everyone out.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been so cool. That was like his way out, Um, but no, they gave a little sample of NXT guys. That's really just it.
Yeah,
Um,
which was
just
expected because they
yeah,
usually do that, and they actually kind of announced it too. So
and like you said, Sting, a Taker. I'm willing to bet money that it's gonna happen.
I think so too. I
I
think
heard.
that's the way to end for both of them. You know, if Sting would want to take a back seat to Taker, they could introduce both of them next year at the Hall of Fame, which would be really cool.
Yeah, yeah, I can see Sting putting Taker over, but
Y-
then it's like, damn, he never won a match in WWE, or he never won a WrestleMania match.
Yeah, I definitely see Sting putting him over.
Yeah,
I don't think he'd even want to, lose to. I mean, win against Taker. I think he would have
right,
definitely put him over, but it's just, does Taker want to wrestle? That's the question.
right. And we won't really know until
Later on, this is gonna
later on
be,
in the year. Yeah,
yeah,
that's how.
this is definitely not set in stone. So
Yeah, but
that's
there's a cool picture. I don't know if you saw a cool picture online surfaced of Taker and Sting hanging out at the airport.
yes, I'm actually looking at it right now, which is kind of cool without, just regular in their baseball caps and
Hmm.
no
Drinking
makeup or anything.
their coffee.
Yeah, and they're both Houston. They're both Texas guys.
Yeah,
Uh, Dallas for Sting and Houston for Taker. So that's kind of cool. Them actually catching up at Mania. They had a conversation about those match.
oh, guarantee it. Guarantee to see what do you think? What I think is what do you think? Um, but yeah, I'm willing to bet it'll happen, but we will see. Like you said, maybe later on towards the Royal Rumble around then.
Yeah, I'm holding out hope for that. Actually,
Yeah,
I actually am. I think this one has a possibility, and especially seems like they have a good relationship. They might be friends outside of the ring. Um, so I think that could happen. I think that's one match since Brock is probably getting, The Rock.
yeah. And there was I read an article about if in case it's not Sting. I mean, I would like to hear your thoughts. Who who Taker would face? But they were saying
Oh, there's one guy, and there's actually one guy I would prefer him to face over Sting.
because the article said they think the only real guy left
John Cena
would be Cena. Exactly. Yeah.
has to be the two biggest guys, of the past decade or so. The Mister, aside from Shawn Michaels, the guy that's synonymous with WrestleMania versus the guy that's been the most dominant,
Yeah.
and leading the company, the face of the company. Them two, I think they had one like Raw match. They
Yeah.
never really faced each other. The feud for that, and it would be one of those who wins. Who would possibly win? Because you can go 50-50 legitimately each
Yeah.
way. Cena never loses at Mania,
I
and
agree.
if he loses, it's in big profile matches. But he could easily be a guy to defeat Undertaker, and Warren's beating Undertaker because he's been such a face of the franchise.
Right.
But yet, then there's Taker. Does he lose this? It would have been a really one of those almost fantasy matches that, unless you remember watching that Raw, it really never happened. You know?
Right. I agree. If it's not Sting, I'd say the same thing. It has to be Cena.
Yeah.
It has to be Cena. And actually, they've only fought once on pay per view, and this is when Cena, early rapper Cena, which I believe was
Mm-hmm.
Vengeance 2014. I mean 2004. I mean.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I agree with that article. I say if it's not Sting, Cena.
Yes. And I would love to see that match. That would be some kind of booking, but some kind of I mean, you talk about preview to a match, you talk about storylines.
Oh
Oh my
man.
gosh, they could go on for days. Cena versus, his no hustle, no die, hustle, loyalty, respect versus, Undertaker, his determined. I mean, they could just draw like completely, like, I mean, we're talking about hours of packages for that.
Oh, imagine like the promos of Undertaker messing with Cena. Cena, the man who
Hmm.
brave, never give up Cena, but oh crap, I'm messing with Dead Man.
Right, which is something you're not used to, or you haven't seen or experienced because you've been keeping separate paths for all your career.
Oh yeah, and if they do go with that match, and let's say Taker wins, I would not
I
say
think
it
I
hurts
think
Cena.
I think Cena wins that match. I really
You would go
do.
with Cena?
Yeah, I would go with Cena. I think it'd be push. It'd be like, 45 to like 55,
Yeah.
but I'd go with Cena because I think Taker would want to do the job to Cena, and yeah, I could see, and that would be Taker's last match, so he doesn't want to probably leave with, a win unless it's to Stink he could because both of them probably would be done, but to Cena to give Cena that one credential that he's not achieved, the only credential he's never achieved, he's
Yeah.
achieved everything, beaten everyone besides Undertaker, and you could see the promos of that,
Oh yeah.
he did the once in a lifetime versus The Rock, twice in a lifetime,
Yeah.
but the thing was you never did one thing, and that is beat the Undertaker,
Yeah.
and that would be like his like mission and goal. It would be great build up. So I would love that. But I think the more likelier actually is Sting.
Yeah.
It's just more likelier
I,
because everyone's talking about it, and I think both of those guys want to make it happen.
I think they could sell. I think for the attendance record and sales and everything, I think Sting and Taker would be a better business option.
Yes, it's just what everyone wants.
Right.
And not only everyone wants, but they've been craving for it. I mean, they've been calling for it. It's almost you got to give the fans what they want, and that's what they want.
They've wanted it since WCW went out of business.
Hmm.
So we will see, man. We have a year till WrestleMania
We
32.
do, but the speculation's already there. The potential's already there. It's it's gonna be a heck of a year, I think, coming up. Like usually now we're starting to usually Extreme Rules. There's still rematches for Mania, but we're entering into the dog days of WWE where summer until SummerSlam it ramps up, but you talk about like May, June, July are usually the slow times of the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then you probably have like September and October the slow times. But I think they can really hold their own now. I think they have something really fresh with Seth, and they have still possibilities. Brock Lesnar is still around. You could use him if you need him.
Right. There's
Um,
a lot of possibilities, and then you have Cena and Daniel Bryan as
yeah, and that's going to be a
Universal Tag Team
completely
Champions.
fresh new approach. Because those two guys are now okay. So now they're going to be carrying the mid card, and it's up to them to build up the mid card.
Right.
And how will they build it up? Who will emerge? Those are some of the questions now that they are faced with, but they can easily accomplish and change things around. So
Right.
I think that's going to be huge going forward the next couple months. We don't need to see Cena in the world title picture. We
No.
just don't. And what we need him to do is elevate other guys. And it's not about him. He beats those other guys.
Yeah.
He beats a Bray Wyatt. He beats a Rusev. But the thing is, just being involved in a program with them, that's what makes them stand out.
Yes. Being in the ring with the face of the company.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's you can't get that kind of publicity or rub anywhere else. And same thing with Daniel Bryan. I think Daniel Bryan's at that level where he can elevate guys.
Yeah,
And
and you
now
can learn
holding
so much from him from the ring.
That's right. And holding that Intercontinental title, that's going to be huge. So I'm actually excited in the direction that they're going now. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I think Randy Orton is going to become your top babyface, kind of take over Cena for that role.
Right.
Top babyface for Orton, top heel for Seth.
Yep.
I think Roman's going to be still growing in. And I think people are going to slowly start accepting him.
Yeah, same. I think after the WrestleMania performance, he earned a lot of respect.
He did, and the thing is, now it's okay for people to cheer for him because he didn't get that one thing that people expected him to get.
Mm-hmm.
That cheap, quick push to the top.
Yeah.
Kind of undeserving. Now, he earned it. So,
Because they would have eaten him alive if he would
oh,
have won
it
the
would have
title.
been bad. And I think they knew it too. I mean, they obviously did know it because of the reaction he got out when he came out. It was boos all night.
Yeah, it was. So they made the right call.
They did. And like I said, they've been molding Seth Rollins, and the payoff had to happen. So it finally did, and it was warranted, and it was just a perfectly scripted Mania.
Yeah.
So and I mean, as disappointing kind of as the Raw was and underwhelming, I think that Mania really made up for everything.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about a Raw because it's just a Raw. You don't
Right.
remember the Raws that much after Mania. What you remember is the WrestleManias. That's what's going to be on the DVDs. That's what's going to be talked about. So they definitely accomplished that. I mean, what a week of wrestling.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, it's
Great,
probably one of the
man.
most memorable times of the year. So, and we covered it all tonight. We went from WrestleMania to Raw to next year's WrestleMania. Okay,
Yeah, man.
and we even talked about Lana's love life. So there's nothing off topic here at the Wrestling Authority podcast. We will go every direction.
Everything's on the table. Everything.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. We can get to talk about, and obviously the shows aren't going to be as filled with fodder and thing to talk about as the last two preview WrestleMania and review of it, but there's still so much more to talk about every week. Uh, and there's going to be plenty of things for us to discuss,
Oh
including,
yeah.
inside and outside of the ring, things are happening.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Now, actually, speaking of outside the ring, it has nothing to do with WrestleMania or Raw, but it does have to do with AJ.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear that rumor that supposedly things are going on between her and CM Punk?
Yeah, that she like unfriend him from her Facebook, or Twitter.
Twitter, and then he made some song lyric. He tweeted some song lyrics or something.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, they just got married. That would be really quick.
Right. They're
Really?
not Kardashians, so I didn't expect
No.
that. The way I see it, I don't know. They seem. I don't know. I feel like society takes this social media thing a little too serious sometimes.
Yeah. I think they're kind of jumping on things that might not be there.
Exactly. I think they're jumping way too quickly. Um, I don't know. I mean, she seems very supportive. I mean, she's always at his press conference and stuff when it was with UFC.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Not only that, um, but I mean, I listened to his podcast what he did with Colt Cabana, and he just talks so highly of her, and that was pretty recently. I don't see why the fallout would be this quick, and over what? I mean, over her working for the company, maybe? Nah, I don't know. I think this is more of an actual rumor and speculation than it is
I
reality.
think so. I think so too. I think everything's okay.
Yeah,
I think
I
just the
think
internet
something. I mean, they
fans.
could have an argument. There, that happens in relationships.
Yeah,
It's normal. But I
right.
don't think it's to a point where they're just. Or you know what? The most likely thing is, CM Punk is working the internet crowd.
Oh yeah, that's actually what I think too. I was like, I can see them having fun
I
with
could too.
this.
I could too. I could see both of them just completely messing with everyone, and
Hmm.
everyone getting fooled up for it. So, yeah, not much to it. I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. But
Awesome. Well, wow. This is a record show. We're almost on 2.5 freaking hours.
wow,
People are gonna have to download this podcast and listen to like through two different probably like workouts at the gym.
wow,
Um,
hey man, it's WrestleMania.
it's
Man, I'm
WrestleMania.
ready for it.
People need to know what's going on and to talk about it. I mean, there's no way you can do a WrestleMania review under that time,
Oh no,
especially an epic WrestleMania. It's not like we're talking about, WrestleMania, a bad one that happened like 27, that would have been probably
oh,
like 20-minute talk.
well, that was the one with Miz
Miz,
Kennedy,
yeah,
huh?
and The Rock hosting. It was
Oh my
bad.
gosh,
It
I
was
remember that.
bad all around. Nothing happened. Um, I mean, the only remotely good match was Orton versus CM Punk, and
Yeah,
everything else was kind of bad. And it was the first Triple H versus Undertaker match.
was that the Edge's retirement?
Yeah, that was Edge's retirement. I mean, he wasn't retired technically then. He retired a couple of days later,
Right.
which was, shocking.
Yeah, so because he was having a really good career at that point.
Yeah, he was. And he was just on top. He just won the world title, so
Mm.
it was going only up for him.
Yeah, that's when then Christian got his first world title after that.
Yeah, yeah, that changed. Wow, history, how fast does it change, right? I mean,
Yeah.
here's one quick prediction or thought before we leave. Usually there's only every year there's one person that leaves the company, either retires or just gets released, for whatever reason, or contract comes to terms and kind of leaves. That's somewhat of a big name or upper mid card or even a main eventer. We've had that with, CM Punk 2 years ago, and it just seems every year there's like one name that kind of leaves that you think like, whoa, I didn't expect him to like retire or leave the
Right.
business. You had Edge before that. Who do you see by the time next WrestleMania rolls around that will be done with the company or gone?
Ah
I have
man,
one name for sure that I think is gonna be done by next WrestleMania.
I think I hate to say it because I'm a huge fan of his, but I think Christian.
Yes, that's one guy I was thinking. I think when I saw him at the Hall of Fame pre-show and they're asking why he's not wrestling and he had no answer for that, he's like, "Well, I'm still, recuperating." No, you've been healthy for a while.
Yeah,
That's definitely one guy that's going to be. I think they're going to retire him, actually do the right thing, and he's going to realize like, "Hey, this is not going to happen anymore."
yeah.
I think he's definitely the one of the top guys to leave. If I had to like make a prediction
Mm,
on who else, I could see the Big Show being done by next WrestleMania.
okay.
Yeah, I could see him surprisingly just kind of called quits.
I think him or Kane, they're definitely coming very close to the end of their
Yes.
careers.
I mean, I spoke to Kane a couple months ago. I did an interview with him,
Mm,
and I kind of did bring that up to
mm,
him. But he said he's actually having a lot of fun now, more so than he has in a lot of years, because he likes mentoring the young guys. Like he mentioned Seth Rollins and
mm.
working with Ambrose. So that he said that rejuvenated his career and added like a little bit longer to it.
Okay.
So I see him still sticking around. I could see, last year we kind of lost Del Rio, Del
Yeah,
Rio and Mysterio were the big, guys that left the company.
and that
That
was a huge hit for their Latin
oh,
fans.
huge. I mean, that's why
Mm,
this new tag team is such a vital thing for him.
mm.
they need that. They need masked, wrestlers, where they can sell the mask to the kids and stuff,
Yeah,
promote them as baby faces. So, you lost Del Rio and Ray. Those are two big losses,
oh
that have not been replaced yet. Um, so yeah, then, like every year you lose some like big time guy that means something to your company. So I could definitely see Big Show. I could definitely see Christian, even though he hasn't been involved. If I had to like do a wild card, like one guy that you'd be shocked about that somehow leaves, um, I might go with boy, it's kind of
yeah.
I'll go with for some reason. Well, I don't know why I thought Miz. I don't think his career's taking off that much, but I wouldn't be that shocked if he somehow walked away or um,
I can see him in the future walking out for attempting Hollywood.
yeah,
I can see that. I know.
it might be a little bit too early now, but I mean, I could see obviously AJ leaving. That's a big
Yeah,
name. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guarantee there's gonna be someone that's gonna leave, and we're gonna be shocked about it, and we're like, we never saw that coming.
it happens every year.
It happens every year, so yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next year. Who might be the one to bow
Yeah,
out? Either retire or get maybe released for whatever reason, or
right. You
um,
know what?
the
Chris.
WrestleMania cap casualties are coming. That always
Yeah,
happens. So I think we might see some mid carders. I could see Zack Ryder being cut easily, and some other people, coming up with these cuts.
yeah, Zack Ryder. I'm surprised they've kept him as long as they.
Me
I mean, I'm a
too.
fan of his,
Oh
but
gosh, yeah, he's worn out his welcome.
yeah, and I. Where was it? Somebody. I think it was Jericho's podcast. Um, it was Jericho's or Austin. I forgot who they had. It might have been Ziggler or somebody. Ziggler or Jericho, I think. And he was saying that WWE is actually upset with Zack Ryder because he got himself over. They didn't get him over,
Hmm.
and that's why they basically ended his YouTube show and all this because they
Yeah,
said that's the reason. He's the reason why WWE is so obsessed with social media because that's when they
he
realized,
started it. That's
yeah,
true.
that's why when they realized, Ryder got huge following on Twitter and YouTube, they're like, wow, we can use this for us. So
Yeah.
I can see Ryder being released at some point. I know
Oh yeah.
what's his name? Justin Gabriel.
Yeah.
He just left. Um,
But those guys are irrelevant.
right, right. Oh yeah. Um, I don't know. I'm really confused what they're doing with Titus O'Neil.
I think that guy has so much potential, and they're wasting him. He should be one of those guys that like has a new gimmick or like completely like turns on someone or just like unexpectedly gets hired by the authority or someone. Where he has more like FaceTime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's one guy I wish they did better things with.
yeah. And it's funny because Batista said the same thing.
Yeah,
Batista said that he thinks that Titus O'Neil deserves
he
more
does.
time, more in ring, more a push. But
Guess
I
we'll
don't know. There's
guess
a
we'll
lot of guys
see.
that deserve more than where they are.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we had a heck of a show. A
Yeah.
2.5+ hour, probably the
Wow.
longest all-time podcast we're gonna have here, unless he put out some really good Raws, which I
Yeah.
kind of doubt. Uh, this was a heck of a podcast. I'm glad we touched on all these topics. People
Oh,
will have a lot to listen to
oh
and
yeah.
debate. We made some great points, I think, with the Orton thing. You
Oh
see,
yeah.
that's what I love about discovering new things that we haven't even been aware of. You don't think to yourself about. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I agree. And I would love to hear what the fans, people listening, what they think about
yeah,
this.
definitely. You can reach us out. Me on Twitter, I'm at Jim RKO. And Ricky, do you have a Twitter or?
I'm at RORO 330.
RORO330. So there you go. Hit us up on Twitter. Let us know what you guys think about the show. Let us know about any of the points we raised, and do you disagree with it or not? You can follow my articles on PW Mania. I'm gonna have a new one coming up. I think it's gonna be a Randy Orton themed article. I think what we touched
Nice.
upon tonight. There's a
Nice.
lot to talk about. So yeah, keep an eye on those, and yeah, make sure to keep on downloading our show on iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud. It's all out there. So make sure you guys keep on listening to us. We're getting bigger and better, and
Yeah.
we're growing. So
Listen, share it with your friends.
yeah, pass it on Facebook,
Send it
tweet
to
it.
Zack Ryder.
Yeah, give it to Zack Ryder. He knows what to do with his social media. Not for WWE, for us.
Right.
And so yeah, awesome, Ricky. Thanks for joining me.
Awesome, Joe,
We're
man. It
gonna
was a
do this
pleasure like
again.
always.
Yeah, and Monday Night Raw coming up. Much probably shorter show, but I'm sure there's gonna be stuff to talk about.
Mhm. Always. WWE always they always good or bad, but they got something to talk about.
That's right. So there you go. Thanks everyone for listening. WrestleMania wrap up is officially wrapped up until WrestleMania 32. We'll be back much sooner than that, but
Yes.
WrestleMania season's over. It's kind of sad.
Yeah. Well, we got Extreme Rules coming up. We'll see how that.
In Chicago, may I
Right.
add.
Chicago, Illinois. So we'll see how those fans are, because you know the Chicago fans.
Crazy, rowdy. It's us, basically.
Yeah.
So that's
Ah,
awesome. All
this is gonna
right.
be fun.
Well, we are out, and you guys tune in next week for the show. See ya, everyone.
Peace out, everyone.